Chapter 306. Within the Great Five-Element Barrier, it was still impossible to use long-range magic skills. This further limited the attack power of Ji-Dong's group. Since they couldn't use long-range attacks, they could only use close combat to break through the opponent's defenses. Of course, this restriction was specific to both sides. In other words, the dark mages couldn't use long-range attack. From Ji-Dong's point of view, this restriction was actually beneficial to him. The blazing sword blossomed with a golden light as Ji-Dong poured all his strength into it. Ji-Dong's entire body became one with the sword, and the tip of his foot touched the ground as he charged forward. After being strengthened by the blazing sword, his extreme yang fire had already reached a terrifying level. At the same time, his entire body also shone with a golden light. Ji-Dong, who was wearing the Godfire Saint King armor, instantly unleashed his flame monarch body. A bright sun rose behind him, and all the mana in his body was converted into extreme yang fire through the yin-yang fish in his chest. Even the primal chaos bead at the core of the yin-yang fish was emitting a faint golden light. Boom! A glaring light suddenly burst forth from the blazing sword. Although they couldn't use mana to attack, the blazing sword still spat out a 3-meter-long sword light. The huge conical sword light was filled with an unstoppable aura. If it was only a 9-meter-long blazing sword, perhaps the dark mages would dare to block it head-on. However, when they clearly felt the terrifying mana fluctuations from the blazing sword, no one dared to block it head-on. The 10 or so dark mages at the front scattered to the two sides, preparing to attack Ji-Dong from the side. This was what Ji-Dong wanted. Otherwise, why would he waste mana and directly use the Flame Monarch's ultimate skill through the blazing sword? Terrifying power burst forth at this moment. Ji-Dong once again used the powerful skill he inherited from the Flying Serpent Flash. He didn't make any turns or changes in direction, just the most pure forward charge. He used the Flying Serpent Flash to launch a sudden and violent charge. His figure flashed, and he instantly rushed 20 meters forward. All the attacks from the dark mages that tried to attack from the side all missed. Ji-Dong's toes touched the ground, and his body followed the sword as he rushed into the heart of the enemy's formation. At this time, dark mages were all rushing at him from all directions. All of them raised their mana to the limit, and all kinds of magical weapons and magical beasts were pressed towards Ji-Dong. Kill! In this situation, Ji-Dong still didn't stop at all. He directly used the second flash of the Flying Serpent Flash. Even the trees in front of him couldn't change his direction. Under the rapid charge of the Flying Serpent Flash, his entire body was like a golden lightning bolt that crossed another 20 meters. Several dark mages that couldn't dodge in time were instantly vaporized by the huge yang fire contained in the blazing sword, not even leaving behind their magical equipment. What kind of speed was this? With 2 flashes, Ji-Dong had already rushed into nearly a third of the dark mages' encirclement. The dark mages behind him were chasing in shock, and the dark mages in front were already doing their best to set up defenses. But even so, it still couldn't stop Ji-Dong's determination to continue charging. The third flash of the Flying Serpent Flash erupted at this moment. The golden light flashed again. No matter what kind of defenses there were in front of him, none of the dark mages that could appear here had broken through to the level of 8 crowns. Even if an 8-crown demon master was here, facing the brilliant sun all that Ji-Dong's blazing sword, they definitely wouldn't easily face it head-on. However, the 3 consecutive advances also allowed the dark mages to figure out some of Ji-Dong's methods of advancing. The moment he finished the third flash, there were 4 dark mages that had rushed to attack from the side. Their weapons just happened to dodge his blazing sword and directly fell on Ji-Dong's body. With their previous experience, it wasn't difficult for the dark mages to grasp the 20-meter advance. Facing attacks from all directions, Ji-Dong had no chance to dodge at all. He also didn't try to dodge or stop defending. If he did that, then he would face dark mages from all directions. With his current strength, under the suppression of the 5 elements boundary, it would be impossible for him to break through the encirclement. Thus, Ji-dong didn't have any intention of dodging at all. He let the 4 magical weapons of different attributes fall on him at the same time. The dark mages that could grasp the advance were naturally the strongest among the dark mages. Among these 4, 2 were 6 crown demon masters, and the other 2 were 7 crown demon masters. However, the moment their magical weapons fell on Ji-dong's body, they suddenly felt that Ji-dong's entire body was like a slippery fish, and his body twisted slightly. It was just a slight twist that was hard to see with the naked eye, but the effect of the winged snake transformation was fully displayed. A low grunt came from Ji-dong's mouth, but at the same time as he withstood the attacks of the 4 dark mages, his body twisted and rushed forward again, brazenly activating the 4th flash. Only when he was already 20 meters away did the clanging sound of the previous 3rd flash ring out, showing how fast he had reached. Ji-dong's winged snake flash could only be used 5 times in a row, and his 5th flash was used together with the 4th flash. The opponent could predict the advance, so how could Ji-dong not control his body? At this time, he had already broken through more than half of the opponent's blockade. His 4th flash didn't rush out 20 meters, but 19 meters. Under his deliberate control, he accurately shortened the distance of his dash by 1 meter. Don't look down on this short distance of 1 meter. It was this 1 meter distance that allowed the 6 magical weapons to attack in advance to bombard the blazing sword or empty space. The blazing sword shook violently, emitting a clear and melodious dragon's cry. At this time, Ji-dong's 5th flash was also activated. This last flash, he no longer rushed forward, but his entire body leapt up diagonally. Entering the air, the enemy's attacks naturally landed on empty space, and Ji-dong's body also used his spread wings to stop for a moment in midair. Even if he couldn't fly, the wings of the Sacred Flame King armor could still slow down his body's free fall. Taking advantage of this moment of pause, he suddenly took a deep breath. It felt as if he was sucking in all the air in the world into his body. In that enormous inhalation, Ji-dong's flame monarch body seemed to expand a bit. The blazing sword in his right hand had already changed to a 2-handed grip, and he abruptly swung it over his head. When his body fell towards the ground, the blazing sword had already brought up an enormous curtain of light in midair, forcibly smashing towards the ground. That's right, he didn't lock onto any target. Where the blazing sword was pointed, it was directly in front of him. That indomitable and desperate aura and the instantaneous burst of power caused the elites of the 5-element continent to involuntarily suck in a breath of cold air. All of the dark magic masters that were pouncing towards Hyoheim simultaneously stopped for a moment. Everyone only had 1 life. Even if they were death soldiers trained in the Dark Divination Dojo, they would still subconsciously take the initiative to protect their own lives. No one could be sure that Ji-dong's sword wouldn't change direction in midair, and that 9-meter-long, 3-meter-wide, and 10-meter-deep giant ravine appeared in front of Ji-dong just like that. However, because his target was only in front of him, he didn't hit any of the dark magic masters. As a result, Ji-dong's sword hit the ground so smoothly. There was an incomparably violent boom, and the moment the 12-meter-long blazing sword hit the ground, both the ground and the 5-element boundary in the sky trembled violently. The terrifying Yang fire, accompanied by the Flame Monarch's full burst of mana and the brilliant sun, all that had been accumulating at the tip of the sword, exploded in an instant. Countless rocks and soil were turned into flying ash by the huge sword, and a 12-meter-long, 3-meter-wide, and 10-meter-deep gully appeared in front of Ji-dong. However, because his attack was only in front of him, he didn't hit any of the dark magic masters. However, just like what was mentioned before, everyone would subconsciously protect themselves. When Ji-dong's earth-shattering sword came crashing down, almost all the enemies in front of him had already dodged to the sides, even those who were 12 meters away. This was the powerful deterrent brought by Ji Dong's 5 consecutive flashes and final leap slash. This slash completely unleashed all the aura that he had accumulated previously. Both the strength of his attack and aura were at their peak. Even Fury, who was at the back, couldn't help but secretly applaud Ji Dong's fearless charge. His junior brother truly lived up to his reputation as a tyrant. Under the siege of nearly 200 powerful dark magicians, he was actually able to charge more than 2/3 of the distance in just a few breaths. What kind of courage and what kind of strength did he have? At this moment, the Earth Goddess Staff's swamp transformation had also spread to the feet of the Dark Magic Masters. More than 1/3 of the Dark Magic Masters clearly felt their legs go soft, and in the next moment, their feet had already been bound by the suddenly sticky ground. The mental pressure brought about by the Earth Goddess Staff was even more terrifying than its power. After all, in the knowledge of all the Dark Magic Masters, it was impossible to use long-range energy attacks in the Great Five Elements barrier. The third of the Dark Magic Masters were instantly in a predicament where it was difficult to chase after them, and this range was still rapidly spreading. Misty had already released her mana to the limit in order to buy enough time for Fury and Ji Dong. She had also discovered what Ji Dong had discovered. Although the additional skills of the Staff of the Earth Goddess could be released, the release speed of swamp transformation was obviously much slower than usual. However, in this way, as long as the enemy was restrained by her, they would not be able to affect Ji Dong's movements through long-range attacks. This was undoubtedly a good thing for them. Misty had already released her magic to the limit in order to buy enough time for Fury and Ji Dong. She had also discovered what Ji Dong had discovered. Although the Earth Goddess Staff skill could be released, the release speed of the Earth Goddess Staff's swamp transformation was obviously much slower than usual. However, in this way, as long as the enemy was restricted by her, they would be unable to use long-range magic attacks to affect Ji Dong's movement. This was undoubtedly a good thing for them. The Hell Thunder Divine Axe transformed into a 3-meter-long battle axe. In this forest, it would be difficult to use a battle axe that was too big. Even without the assistance of the myriad lightning calamity realm, the blinding lightning on the Hell Thunder Divine Axe still produced a terrifying explosive force. No matter who it was, if any dark magician's attack collided with the Hell Thunder Divine Axe, their bodies would be paralyzed in the next moment. While they were paralyzed, their bodies would be split into 2 by the Hell Thunder Divine Axe. When Fury charged into the enemy's formation, he had killed 6 dark magicians within a few breaths because he was not used to the powerful god weapon. Even though these dark magic masters were all above the 5 crowns, Fury's mana was as high as level 79, and he had the ultimate Yang Lightning mana as well as the Thunder Divine Axe that was completely compatible with his own attribute. In this kind of head-on melee, who could block the power of his axe? When the Dark Magic Masters reacted, at least 7 to 8 of them attacked Fury at the same time, only then did he slow down his advance. However, with every step he took, at least a few corpses would be left behind. He did not defend at all, and completely attacked with all his might. The Thunder Divine Axe's 3 attributes of anti-magic, paralysis, and deterrence were unleashed to the fullest. None of the weapons in the Dark Magic Master's hands could block it. Only by relying on their exquisite coordination and attacking the enemy's vital points could they barely block the Thunder Emperor's advance. Even so, at least a quarter of the Dark Magic Masters were being held back by Fury. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon and the Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon were not idle either. These 2 mutated level 9 giant dragons guarded Fury's 2 flanks. Their powerful bodies and terrifying physical attacks were fully unleashed, and the Dark Magic Masters had to send more than 10 people each to barely block them. In this way, almost a third of the Dark Magic Masters had to block Fury and the 2 dragons' advance. As for the silver-winged Hai Dongqing, it was protecting its master. With the full power of the Staff of the Goddess of Earth, Fury's attacks became even more ferocious. It was as if the earth into swamp had eyes. Be it Fury or the two giant dragons, they did not feel any sluggishness at all. As for the dark magic masters who were trapped in the earth into swamp, once they came into contact with the ultimate earth mana released by the divine weapon, they would naturally feel the pressure of the ultimate earth mana, and it would be even more difficult for them to block Fury and the others. The dark magic masters lived up to their reputation as elite. When Ji Dong's sword struck the ground, they were only stunned for a moment, and the 10 dark magic masters closest to Ji Dong had already rushed forward. Chapter 307. The dark magicians couldn't allow Ji Dong to continue moving forward. As long as he moved forward less than 50 meters, he would be able to rush out of the forest and the altar would be in the open space outside. More than 10 magical weapons were launched at the same time, attacking Ji Dong, who had just finished his attack with a large amount of magical power. From their point of view, after launching such a powerful sure-kill attack, no matter how powerful he would still need some time to catch his breath. Even if it was just 1 or 2 seconds, it would be enough for them to kill Ji Dong a few times. Unfortunately, what they didn't know was that Ji Dong had chaos mana that had already been condensed into a pearl. That's right, he did release a lot of mana in that attack. However, under the effect of the chaos pearl, he didn't need to make any adjustments at all. The process of adjustment had already been completed by the Chaos Pearl itself. The mysteries of chaos were almost endless. Even Fury had to be wary of Ji Dong's actual combat power, mainly because of the existence of chaos. With a flash of golden light, the moment the bombardment ended, the blazing sword was already kept back into Ji Dong's body. With a slight shift of his feet, the dark magicians were shocked to find that the previous Ji Dong had actually turned into 3, and the 3 figures were simultaneously leaping in different directions. This situation was really too strange. Their movements unconsciously paused for a moment. At this moment, Ji Dong's body had already turned around. He didn't continue to rush forward as the dark magicians expected. Instead, he turned around and leaped back. The Flame Monarch's physique was instantly withdrawn into his body. The moment the 2 figures disappeared in the air, he had already quickly cut into the group of dark magicians. At this moment, what appeared behind Ji Dong wasn't the yin-yang fire formation, but the yin-yang fire soaring formation. Under such circumstances, even with the suppression of the major 5 elements boundary, his speed was still increased to an extremely terrifying level. The first to face Ji Dong was a dark magician wielding a 2-meter-long heavy sword. When he saw Ji Dong's figure suddenly turn around, he hurriedly poured mana into his heavy sword and took a step back with his left foot. The heavy sword in his hand directly blocked in front of him. This was a quick reaction that he had trained for many years. He was confident in his companions. As long as they could block Ji Dong for a while, Ji Dong would have to face their attacks in the next moment. However, could he really stop Ji Dong for even a moment? Ji Dong's right hand directly slammed against his heavy sword. With a metallic hum, Ji Dong's entire body slammed against Wang Zhong's shoulder the moment his right hand slammed out. Is this guy crazy? Using his body to hit my heavy sword? This was the dark magician's last thought in this world. Because in the next moment, his body had already been pierced through by the sharp spike on the shoulder of Ji Dong's Holy Fire King armor. That spike completely ignored the armor on the dark magician's body and accurately pierced his heart. There was no need for any mana input at all. If the heart was pierced, even a 9-crown magician would die. The heavy sword that had been blocking between Ji Dong and the magician actually didn't have any effect when Ji Dong crashed into it. It was like a piece of paper and was directly pierced through. It didn't even slow down Ji Dong's speed. The heavy sword that was 3 inches thick obviously wasn't made of paper. The reason it didn't block Ji Dong's attack was because it had already melted before Ji Dong's shoulder crashed into it. When Ji Dong's right hand slammed into it, it just so happened to be in the middle of the heavy sword. The ultimate Yin fire was released in a very small area, and under the condition of using as little mana as possible, it completely melted a piece of metal on the heavy sword. Even the dark magician himself didn't notice it, and the spike on Ji Dong's shoulder armor had pierced through the melted heavy sword. The spike instantly lengthened and pierced through the opponent's heart. It took a long time to describe, but in reality, this attack was completed in an instant. Whether it was the dark magician who had been pierced in the heart or his companions, none of them clearly saw how Ji Dong had killed him. Following this collision, Ji Dong's right hand waved 5 times in the air like lightning. 5 rays of light shot out from his hand and hit the weapons of the 5 dark magicians that were attacking him. 5 violent explosions rang out at the same time. The first to appear were 5 pitch-black claw shadows. Then, a golden figure that looked exactly like Ji Dong crashed into the black claw shadows and made a forward punching motion. How could the 5 dark magicians have imagined that Ji Dong would use such a strange attack? 5 muffled groans sounded at the same time. In the huge explosion, the 5 dark magicians were sent flying. In order to race against time, Ji Dong could no longer care about saving. He had thrown out 5 bottles of magic skill wine, and they were the most basic combination of the Dark Moon Claw and Devour Sunday. This was the combination of Ji Dong's mental strength. If it wasn't for the lack of time for him to experiment, he could have made an even more powerful magic skill wine. Of course, he had to change the ingredients when making it. The power of the 5 bottles of demonic skill wine tore open another opening for Ji Dong. His entire body seemed to be sticking close to the ground as he moved forward. With a flash, he had already burrowed into the 10-meter deep ravine that the blazing sword had created earlier. At the same time as he entered the ravine, he pounced out like lightning, his speed already pushed to the limit. The dark magicians chasing towards the ravine were met with the attacks of the other 5 bottles of magic skill wine. When they resisted the explosive power of the magic skill wine, Ji Dong had already flown out from the other end of the ravine. At this time, he was only 20 meters away from rushing out of the forest. In front of him, there were only 10 or so dark magicians left. Behind Ji Dong, the gray earth-turning swamp was rapidly spreading forward. A large number of dark magicians had already been temporarily entangled, and there were less than 30 that could chase after him. I can't stop. This was the only thought in Ji Dong's mind. From the beginning of his charge until now, due to the suppression of the 5 elements boundary, he couldn't get any mana replenishment. He couldn't even absorb the mana from the crystal core, because if he did, his advance would definitely come to a halt. At this time, he deeply felt that the mana of a 6 crown rank was not enough. Mana was being consumed in large amounts under the pressure of the 5 elements boundary, and it had already caused his breathing to become a little hurried. Just as he was prepared to charge at these dark magicians at all costs and fight them in close combat, and then find an opportunity to use the flying serpent flash to break through, something unexpected happened. Not only did these magicians not attack him, but they also quickly retreated out of the forest. Ji Dong naturally wouldn't let go of such an opportunity, and hurriedly rushed forward. However, when he reached the edge of the forest, his heart couldn't help but sink. Everything that those 10 dark magicians did was what Ji Dong was most afraid of seeing. They retreated out of the forest, and also retreated out of the 5 elements boundary. From a certain point of view, the 5 elements boundary formed by the dark magicians of the 5 elements continent, in terms of suppression, was far above the Demon Alliance's magicians. However, in terms of range, it was inferior, because this boundary would not stop people from entering or leaving. Those 10 dark magicians took a step out of the forest, which also meant that after leaving the 5 elements boundary, 10 of them immediately released their mana at the same time. Without the 5 elements boundary's influence, they could naturally release their mana. The mana that could be released condensed into a large net in the air, forming a separate 5 elements boundary, which just happened to block Ji Dong's path. No matter how exquisite Ji Dong's flying serpent flash was, it could only be used in the air, and the condensed 5 elements boundary and the 10 magicians' defensive skills were like a mountain blocking in front of him. The most painful thing for Ji Dong was that the opponents had already retreated out of the 5 elements boundary, but his body was still in the 5 elements boundary. In other words, those 10 dark magicians would not be affected by the 5 elements boundary, but he still had to be suppressed by it. In this way, his forward momentum would inevitably be blocked, and the dark magicians behind him would already be able to catch up. It wasn't that Ji Dong didn't have a powerful devil skill to break through this layer of defense, but the last method he left behind was used to break the altar. The sacrificial ceremony that was based on the 10 divine tools, how could it be so easy to break through? Even if he broke through the blockade in front of him, what could he use to launch an attack on the altar? In this situation where he could advance or retreat, even someone as decisive as Ji Dong couldn't help but hesitate for a moment, and he felt like he was at his wits' end. At the most crucial moment, a faint golden light suddenly flashed by, and 10 muffled groans sounded at the same time. Ji Dong clearly saw 10 metal spikes pierce through the chests of the 10 dark magicians blocking his way. Blood and disbelief blossomed at the same time, and in the next moment, the 5 elements boundary in front of Ji Dong broke by itself. "What are you waiting for? Hurry!" A familiar voice echoed in his ears. Without a doubt, such a familiar sneak attack could only belong to one person, and that was the owner of the extreme metal devil power, Ah Jin. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be easy for Ah Jin to sneak up on these magicians, who were around the 6 crowns. Unfortunately, these dark magicians' attention was all focused on Ji Dong, and when they released the 5 elements boundary, they clearly saw the hesitation in Ji Dong's eyes. Thinking that their plan had worked, they immediately relaxed for a moment. Ah Jin was definitely a master of assassination. She had actually snuck over a long time ago, but the energy waves emitted by the altar made her understand that it wasn't something she could break through. Thus, she had been waiting for an opportunity, and finally made her move at the most crucial moment, helping Ji Dong clear the obstacles in his way. A golden figure replaced Ji Dong's previous position. The 6-meter-long eunuch maker was already waving in the wind, blocking the pursuers for Ji Dong. She definitely wouldn't be able to block the attacks of so many dark magicians by herself, but in a situation where no one could use long-range attacks, Ah Jin's powerful combat skills were enough for her to block the pursuers for Ji Dong as much as possible. With a flash, Ji Dong rushed out of the forest. The feeling of his strength recovering almost made him groan. Without the restrictions of the 5 elements boundary, the suppressed soul vortex spun rapidly, and the extreme dual-fire devil power was almost greedily sent outwards as a signal. The chaos bead shone brightly, and all the fire elements in the air swarmed in like rivers running into the sea. The yin-yang fire condensation matrix also instantly replaced the yin-yang fire soaring matrix. 2 rank 7 fire essence crystals were held in Ji Dong's hands, and he completely recovered the devil power he had previously consumed. The darkness altar finally appeared in Ji Dong's line of sight. When Ji Dong first saw this not-so-huge altar, his soul vortex couldn't help but tremble slightly. The current darkness altar was already different from what Yun Tianji had described. The 10 darkness heavenly apostles had gathered. They were no longer sitting, but standing up, holding all sorts of weapons that shone with dark golden light in their hands. An incomparably powerful aura was continuously being emitted from the 10 darkness heavenly apostles' exclusive divine artifacts. At the top of each divine artifact, there was a strange symbol about half a meter in diameter. The 10 symbols shone with different colors in the air. Those were the halos of 10 types of ultimate mana. On the top of the altar, the mysterious dark seer raised his scepter high and chanted a special incantation in a high-pitched voice. On the dark scepter in his hand, a weird, twisted halo was clearly visible. If it had been anyone else, they might not have been able to see what it was. However, through the undulations of his spiritual vortex, Ji-dong could see that the distorted halos were converging into a huge circular array in midair. Every pattern of the 5 elements formation appeared in this array. However, because it was colorless and transparent, it could not be seen with the naked eye. They were about to succeed. This was the only thought that Ji-dong's mental demon domain transmitted to him. The darkness altar was constantly emitting an extremely strange aura, which prevented Ji-dong's mental strength from probing deeper. He could only sense that the ritual of the darkness altar was nearing its end. It was like a broken mirror that was about to be restored. At the same time, Ji-dong also discovered that from the moment he stepped out of the forest, his spiritual connection with the sacred evolution fire dragon and the flaming bar had been forcibly cut off. His spiritual connection with his senior brother and Miao Miao had also been cut off. It seemed that the darkness altar itself was emitting a special kind of mana that could block all forms of energy transmission. He recalled what the flaming bar had said before. The darkness altar used a special method to block the fluctuations of mana from the outside world. Even the holy beasts on the 5th floor of the darkness altar could not sense its existence. No matter how shocked Ji-dong was when he saw the altar, he had already soared into the air. A glaring card wind was released, and the light of the sun was suffused. He had already swung his huge sword, and his target was the core of the altar, Darkness Heavenly Apostle. Chapter 308. A golden screen of light burst forth in the sky like a brilliant sun. The sword that weighed more than 5,000 kilograms, coupled with Ji-dong's full output of demonic energy, was so powerful that it slashed towards Dark Tianji's head. However, what surprised Ji-dong was that the 10 dark heavenly stem saints did not react to his actions. It was as if they did not see him attacking Dark Tianji. Only Scorpion's expression changed slightly when she saw Ji-dong. Even though the Junmo Yin-Yang armor had transformed into the Divine Flame Saint King armor, she was still too familiar with the mask on Ji-dong's face. The owner of the mask had left a deep impression on her. Even though she had to hide the 5 elements formation at that time, she had already used all her strength. Even after joining hands with the Darkwater Saint disciple, Han Yu, they were still unable to deal with this person. This time, they were facing an all-out interception from their side. Although there were only a few of them, they had actually broken through the encirclement in such a short period of time. It was him again, it was him again. However, Scorpion's expression was somewhat sad. She was actually thinking how good it would have been if he had not participated in the battle between the holy and evil saint. At the very least, he wouldn't have to die immediately. The final weapon, Li Yonghao, was also looking at Ji-dong. His gaze was extremely calm. Scorpion was not the only one who recognized Ji-dong. He had also recognized him. In Li Yonghao's opinion, if another 10 years had passed, perhaps Ji-dong would have caused some trouble for them. The owner of the ultimate dual fire should be the heavenly stem Saint King of this generation's radiant 5 elements continent. The unique ultimate dual fire might have made his strength surpass Li Yonghao's. Unfortunately, it was all too late. He no longer had the chance to influence the outcome of this battle. The golden light descended from the sky, bringing with it a sharp and domineering aura as it landed on the altar. However, when the golden light was 10 meters away from the altar, a layer of faint multicolored halo suddenly appeared in front of the blazing sword without any warning. Boom. The sword heavily bombarded the multicolored light. The seemingly faint multicolored light only emitted faint ripples, but Ji-dong had already been sent flying along with his sword. That's right, all the mana of the 10 dark heavenly stem saints had been injected into the divine weapons in their hands. At this time, they had no offensive power, and could not leave the altar without permission. However, that was the exclusive divine weapon of the 10 dark heavenly stem saint. With the 10 divine weapons gathered, they not only brought support to the sacrificial ceremony of the dark heavenly stem saints, but also fused with a small portion of mana, and formed a layer of yin-yang boundary around the altar. This was the yin-yang world of the 5 elements that had been created by extreme magic. It was just like the yin-yang world of the 5 elements that had been created by the 8 radiant saints and her 5 years ago at the holy evil battlefield. Furthermore, this yin-yang world of the 5 elements was even more powerful. This was because its source came from the power of the 10 great divine weapons. The power of the sword was strong, and it was accompanied by the attack of the ultimate yang fire. However, it was like a dragonfly trying to shake a mountain, and it could not affect the yin-yang boundary of the 5 elements at all. Ji Dong only felt his body shake violently. Even though he had the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation to dissolve most of the impact, the sword was still sent flying out of his hand. He was also sent flying 100 meters away, and he only managed to maintain his balance by relying on his wings. The mana in his body surged violently, and his chi and blood surged, almost causing him to spit out blood. His face, which was hidden under the divine flame Saint King armor, turned red. As expected, it was not that easy to break through. Ji Dong took a deep breath in the air, and barely managed to suppress the surging chi and blood in his body. He retracted his wings, and with a flash, he grabbed the sword that had been sent flying. When he stabilized the chi and blood in his body, the situation in front of him had changed drastically. The barrier of the 5 elements that covered the forest disappeared on its own. Using the senses of the mental demon domain, he could clearly see that all the dark demon masters in the forest had given up on surrounding Fury and the others, and had returned to support the darkness altar. There was a flash of golden light, and Ah Jin had already retreated. Behind her, there were several dozen rays of intense mana chasing after her. Fortunately, Ah Jin was extremely fast, and she had rich battle experience. She dodged, and only barely managed to dodge after retreating out of the forest. At this moment, there were still more than 200 dark demon masters, and they were rushing towards the darkness altar with all their might. The darkness altar had been attacked, and they were clearly panicking. They were no longer as calm as before. When Ji Dong had been sent flying, several dozen people had already returned. They quickly stood in front of the darkness altar, and a barrier of the 5 elements lit up in front of the darkness altar. They no longer attacked Ji Dong and the others, and instead switched to full defense. They did their best to prevent Ji Dong from directly attacking the darkness altar. Amidst the dragon roars, the sacred evolution fire dragon, the purple thunder heaven dragon, and the silver-winged sea dragon flew in with Yun Tianji, Fury, and Misty. They met up with Ji Dong and Ah Jin. The 5 of them looked at each other, and saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. Yun Tianji's expression was the most serious. He said, "Quick, we must stop them immediately. The ceremony is about to be completed." When Fury saw Hyoheim move, he asked, "Little junior brother, what's going on?" Ji Dong said solemnly, "There's a 5-element yin-yang world around the darkness altar. I tried to attack it with the blazing sword just now, but I was sent flying back. The strength of this 5-element yin-yang world surpasses that of the Saints of Light." Fury's gaze turned to the darkness altar, and he immediately saw Li Yonghao standing there with the Black Sky Demon sword in his hand. Li Yonghao's gaze also landed on Fury's face. Intense sparks immediately burst forth from the gazes of this pair of archenemies. "Fury, you've come too late. You won't have another chance. So what if you obtained the divine artifact Hellthunder God? Even the Hellthunder divine axe can't break through our 5-element yin-yang world. You've already been proud for more than 10 years, but this time, I'm afraid you won't be able to find the feeling of victory. Today, this will be your burial ground." A cold light flickered in Fury's eyes. He said, "Li Yonghao, don't think about using words to stall for time. Isn't it just the 5-element yin-yang world? If you haven't tried, how do you know it can't be broken?" As he spoke, the light around Fury's body started to change. This time, he didn't absorb the demonic energy from the purple thunder heavenly dragon. Instead, purple light blossomed from his body. The purest ultimate yang bud demonic energy constantly rose from his body. Every time it changed, his aura would rise a little. Li Yonghao snorted disdainfully. Fury, I'm afraid you still don't know this. Ever since we first fought, you never had a chance of winning against me. You took away 3 victories from me, all because of today. I've been waiting for this day for far too long. Our 5 elements continent has been preparing for this day for 1,000 years. From today onwards, not only will the holy evil island cease to exist, your 5 elements continent's only fate will be to submit. Do you think I still need to stall for time? Come, let me see how powerful your Hell Thunder Divine Axe is to be able to break through the blockade of our continent's elite. Let me see how much strength you have left to attack the altar. The final victory will belong to our 5 elements continent. You're just an ant in my eyes. Before Fury could speak, Ji Dong already said coldly, Li Yonghao, don't think that you've won. Our battle isn't over before your ritual is complete. Ajin, the scroll. Ajin naturally understood what Ji Dong meant, and with a flip of his wrist, a golden scroll appeared in his palm. Li Yonghao's expression couldn't help but change slightly when he saw this scroll, and he said, A super ultimate skill scroll? Before he finished speaking, Ajin quietly took a step forward. He was already at the forefront of the 5 people on his side. The scroll in his hand instantly unfurled in the wind. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying aura burst forth from Ajin's body like a volcanic eruption. In an instant, the dense metal attribute demonic energy in the air became extremely dense. A layer of golden light even appeared around Ajin. Ji Dong, Fury, and Miao Miao were all gathering their demonic energy. The dark ritual was about to be completed, and it was time for the final battle. If they couldn't stop the other party, then it would be their demise. The 5 elements continent would probably suffer as well. At a time like this, none of them held anything back. Sensing the aura emitted by the scroll in Ajin's hand, the expressions of the dark demonic masters changed at the same time. Although they couldn't tell at a glance that it was a super ultimate skill scroll like Li Yonghao, they could hear Li Yonghao's voice clearly. However, none of the dark demonic masters attacked Hyoheim and the others. It wasn't because they were afraid, but because of the dark altar behind them. In their hearts, the most important thing was not their own lives, but the completion of the dark ritual. They had received hellish training in the dark divination dojo since they were young, allowing these dark demonic masters to achieve what they had today. However, at the same time, they were also completely brainwashed by the dark divination dojo. To them, the orders of the dark divination dojo were a mission that they had to complete, even if they had to pay with their lives. Sensing the terrifying power of the super ultimate skill scroll in Ajin's hand, the 5 elements boundary formed by the dark demonic masters was not chaotic at all. They all gathered in front of them, firmly protecting the dark altar behind them. It was the same super ultimate skill scroll, but it was completely different in Ajin's hands compared to the demonic master called Tianxia from the Demonic Skills Guild. Pure Een Metal demonic power was injected into the Gung Metal demonic skill scroll. It was much easier to activate the Gung Metal demonic skill scroll. Moreover, Ajin had injected ultimate demonic power, so the speed at which he activated the scroll was much faster. In the span of 3 breaths, a blinding golden light exploded in front of Ajin. The golden scroll had already turned into specks of golden light and shattered in Ajin's hand. Ji Dong's figure flashed, and he landed behind Ajin. He raised his right hand, and a milky white flame quietly rose in his palm. In the next moment, his hand was already pressed against the back of Ajin's helmet with the light of the milky white flame. The mental energy accumulated in his soul vortex was fully released, and instantly injected into Ajin's soul, which had no intention of resisting at all. Their mental energy instantly merged into one. Specks of golden light spread out in the air. A low and deep tiger roar resounded, causing the earth to tremble violently. A huge illusion of a white tiger quietly appeared in the air. Streaks of extremely sharp and cold aura blossomed in the air. The white tiger was a gung metal totem. The appearance of the white tiger illusion that was 100 meters long showed how powerful this intermediate super-ultimate skill was. Even Ji Dong couldn't imagine how such a skill had been imprinted in that small scroll. Woo 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 woo. The sound of strong wind suddenly rang out from all directions. The huge white tiger in the sky raised its head. In the next moment, its huge body had turned completely golden. The strong wind instantly formed a huge tornado in the sky, enveloping the white tiger's body in an instant. The tornado that appeared without warning almost instantly increased in strength. However, such a strong wind did not have any effect on the virtual image of the white tiger. The moment the tornado was completely formed, golden light bloomed from the white tiger's body in an instant. An unparalleled strong light instantly exploded, and thousands of golden lights shattered with ear-piercing whistles. Ji Dong had to use all his eyesight to see that they were clearly pieces of golden metal the size of a palm. Every piece of metal was completely condensed from gung metal demon power. Even though his and Ah Jin's spiritual power were completely connected through the chaotic fire, it was impossible for them to control these thousands of metal pieces. However, the huge tornado was under his control. The illusion of the white tiger disappeared quietly, and the tornado also turned golden at the same time it disappeared. This was because this extremely terrifying huge tornado contained thousands of metal pieces. The ear-piercing whistles and the clanging sounds of metal colliding made everyone unable to hear anything else. What kind of majestic power was this? At this moment, everyone could only see the golden color, and they could only hear the sound of the wind and the collision of metal. The overwhelming momentum even produced a pressure that was even more terrifying than the great 5 elements boundary from before, the pressure brought by the extreme gung metal. Yes, this was the power of an intermediate ultimate skill. Even though it was different from Ji Dong's Fire God Void Slash that attacked a single target, the visual impact of its group attack would bring about even more terrifying mental pressure. Its name had already appeared in Ah Jin's mind, so it naturally appeared in Ji Dong's mind as well. The name of this intermediate ultimate skill was called Metal Storm. The terrifying tornado descended from the sky with countless metal pieces that had cutting power. Under Ji Dong's cold gaze, under the control of his powerful supreme sage spiritual power, this metal storm swept towards the dark magicians. Chapter 309. While Ji Dong was helping Ajin activate the ultimate skill, Metal Storm, Fury didn't stay idle either. The Hell Thunder God in his hand flew up again. This time, it floated behind him. Without the help of the purple thunder heavenly dragon or his wings, he actually floated in the air. The extreme purple color was completely contained within him, and the Hell Thunder divine axe behind him formed a purple halo that covered his body. The intense yang thunder mana caused the air around his body to distort, and there was a loud rumble of thunder. Streaks of purple electricity flickered around his body unstably, and 2 rays of light shot out of his eyes like amethyst. Lightning dragons rose up around Fury's body one after another. They were completely condensed by his own mana. At the same time, the Yang Thunder Yang crown above his head also released 7 lightning dragons at the same time, which reflected the lightning dragons released from his body. With Fury's 7 crowns power, he could only release 7 lightning dragons. Including the lasting matrix, he could only release 14 lightning dragons. However, his mana was already close to 8 crowns, and he was under the world of lightning calamity, where the lightning element was extremely dense. He actually managed to condense a 15th lightning dragon at the last moment. The metal storm unleashed its might. With Ajin's spiritual power, he could only release it and direct it to attack in a fixed direction. However, with Ji Dong's vast spiritual power supporting the Chinese library, this intermediate ultimate skill was completely under his control. A terrifying tornado descended from the sky, bringing with it a terrifying aura as it crashed into the 5 elements yin-yang world that the dark magic masters had set up. The 10-elemental yin-yang world was undoubtedly extremely powerful. It could connect the mana of 10 magicians together and unleash the effect of a combination skill. In terms of attributes, it was flawless because it had all 10 attributes and 5 elements. However, no matter how perfect the defense was, it still had its limit. When faced with a tyrannical attack that was absolutely above it, the result wouldn't change. The ear-piercing sound of friction made one's teeth ache. The first layer of the 5-elemental yin-yang world instantly lit up. This was the appearance when the mana of the boundary was raised to its limit after coming into contact with an attack. There wasn't even a second of pause. In the next moment, the 10 dark magicians were already swallowed by the metal tornado. Their screams were accompanied by a rain of blood, causing the tornado to be dyed red. The terrifying tornado that contained fragments of gung gold tore their bodies into pieces the moment they were sucked into it. How could a mid-level ultimate skill be blocked so easily? One after another, the 5-elemental yin-yang world shone. Although the dark magicians had the will to die in their hearts, they couldn't help but feel fear in their eyes when they saw their companions being swept away by the terrifying tornado. However, it was too late for them to give up at this time. The metal tornado that covered a large area had forcibly crashed into their defensive formation. The mid-level ultimate skill, even if it was a supreme expert, could not be released by everyone, not to mention that the mid-level ultimate skill in front of them was the gung gold attribute, the most offensive of the 5 elements and 10 attribute. Perhaps its explosive power was slightly worse than the gung fire attribute, but its penetrating power and destructive power were above the gung fire attribute. For the safety of the 5 elements continent, Jidong's heart was as hard as iron at this time, and he would never show any mercy. Almost in a few breaths, more than half of the dark magicians had been swallowed by the metal storm. The dark magicians were still trying to make a final struggle. The remaining hundreds of dark magicians, who had mounts, integrated their mounts' magic power, and those who did not have mounts raised their magic power to the extreme, launched a full-scale counterattack. Whether it was the 5-elemental yin-yang world or their respective skills, they were all output to the maximum extent. More than 100 dark magicians were carrying out the last struggle of their lives. However, absolute power was absolute power. One after another, the seemingly powerful magic power was shattered in the raging metal storm. The combined forces of more than 100 dark magicians only slightly reduced the tornado produced by the entire metal storm. When the metal storm slammed into the dark altar, more than 200 dark magicians had been wiped out. This was the terror of a super ultimate skill. Any super ultimate skill, even if it was a primary super ultimate skill, had the terrifying power to destroy a city. When Yin Zhaoyang and Yin Zhaorong went to the Central Plains city, it caused panic in the top management of the continent's #1 city. No one dared to gamble. If the two siblings each released a super ultimate skill, then even a huge city like the Central Plains city would suffer an unprecedented disaster. When Jidong fought against the original owner of this scroll, Tian Xie, there were 6 supreme experts present at that time, but when they saw Tian Xie was about to release the super ultimate skill, they still couldn't help but be shocked and afraid. Even the calmest Yin Zhaoyang had to make the first move, because when a super ultimate skill was formed, even if they were 9-crown supreme experts, they could only resist the attack of the super ultimate skill before they could counterattack. The power of an area-type mid-level super ultimate skill, within its scope, perfectly explained the meaning of a word: destruction. The reason why the 9-crown devil masters were so respected, and even the royal families of various countries had to be humble, was because the existence of each of them was equivalent to the deterrence of a country possessing nuclear weapons in Jidong's previous life. No matter how many devil masters a country controlled, if there was not 1 or 2 supreme experts to hold the line, then no one could compete with the super ultimate skill. This time, the Dark Devil Legion that entered the Holy Evil battlefield could not be said to be weak. They were all absolute elite. At their age, to be able to reach such a cultivation base, it was not only genius that could describe them, but also hellish hard work. But even so, when the mid-level super-ultimate skill revealed its fangs, it was difficult for them to escape the fate of destruction. When the last Dark Devil Master was sucked into the Metal Storm, the entire Metal Storm showed a faint layer of red. That was the change caused by the blood and flesh of the Dark Devil Masters. Li Yonghao's face had become very ugly. The Dark Devil Legion was completely under his command, and it could be said that they were his direct subordinate. Although the main role of these nearly 300 people entering the Holy Evil battlefield this time was as cannon fodder to ensure the success of the Dark Ritual, this force was still quite strong. They were all elites cultivated by the Dark Tianji Dojo for decades, and now they were all wiped out. As the commander's ultimate weapon, how could Li Yonghao not be angry? However, just like how Ji Dong could not do anything about the five elements yin-yang world, he could also do nothing now. He could only pour more demonic power into the Black Demon Sword to help the Dark Tianji Dojo complete the final stage of the ritual. More than 200 Dark Devil Masters were killed, but the Metal Storm did not stop. Under Ji Dong's full control, it violently collided with the five elements yin-yang world that was guarding the Dark Altar. In the loud bang, Yun Tianji and Miao Miao in the distance covered their ears at the same time. The ear-piercing sound of friction sounded too painful. Every piece of extreme gung metal in the Metal Storm violently rubbed against the five elements yin-yang world, and the five elements yin-yang world, which previously showed a faint 10-colored light when Ji Dong attacked, suddenly became bright, especially where it came into contact with the Metal Storm. It even burst out with a dazzling 10-colored light. One piece of extreme gung metal after another was turned into powder by the intense friction between the tornado and the five elements yin-yang world, and the five elements yin-yang world also rippled with intense halos. This was a battle of mana consumption. The 10 dark stem saints on the darkness altar all showed focused gazes as they stared at the medium ultimate skill wreaking havoc. They were not sure how strong the defense of the five elements yin-yang world was. After all, the five elements yin-yang world was not set up by the 10 of them with the full power of their divine artifact. It was only formed by a portion of the mana that they emitted while carrying out the dark ritual. As it turned out, the yin-yang world of the five elements formed by the condensation of the 10 types of ultimate mana was extremely sturdy. Moreover, these 10 types of ultimate mana were emitted by all 10 of the Darkness Heavenly Stem Saints' exclusive artifact. No defensive magic skill of any type, even a super ultimate defensive magic skill, could compare to this yin-yang world of the five elements. The Metal Storm was getting smaller and smaller, but the yin-yang world of the five elements was still firm and showed no signs of breaking. At this moment, a shout suddenly rang out. Li Yonghao's eyes narrowed, and his gaze shifted from the Metal Storm that had just disappeared to the purple figure that had risen into the sky not far away. Another boom rang out, and the extreme gung metal in the air was replaced by extreme yang lightning as soon as the extreme gung metal in the air dispersed. The purple figure that was floating in the air had become the focus of everyone present. The violent boom was the sound of Fury's armor exploding. The armor could not withstand the tremendous lightning that was emitted from his body and disintegrated on its own, scattering in all directions. The Hell Thunder Divine Axe on Fury's back had mysteriously disappeared. At this moment, a huge black disk appeared behind him, or rather, it was an existence that looked like a black hole. The edge of the black hole was deep purple, and the purple color was actually fluctuating like flames. Without his armor, Fury's upper body was bare, and the bulging muscles on his body were full of strength and beauty. Blue veins were protruding under his skin, and they were the same brilliant purple color as his body. The purple light in his deep eyes had already disappeared, but the dangerous aura that was released from his body made even Ji Dong, who had completed controlling the metal storm, widen his eyes. Even for him, it was the first time that he had seen his senior brother go all out. Jidong vaguely understood how humiliated Fury was when he found out that Li Yonghao had never used his full strength in the past battles between the holy and evil saints. At this moment, he was completely enraged. The 15 lightning dragons circled around Fury's body. Suddenly, a strange scene appeared. The black hole behind Fury instantly floated forward and sucked his high-spirited body in. His body was black on the inside and purple on the outside, forming a huge sphere that was beating rhythmically like a heart. At the same time, the thick world of myriad lightning calamity in the sky suddenly fluctuated violently, and the thick clouds actually turned deep purple. This change finally made the expression of Darkness Tianji, who had been chanting loudly, change slightly. He did not stop chanting, but he glanced in Fury's direction. The dark ritual was about to be completed. At this time, no matter what happened in the outside world, he had to continue. He only had one chance, and he could not fail at the last step. Once the dark ritual was interrupted and was discovered by the 5 sacred beasts inside, they would die without a burial place even if they had the 10 divine weapons. The purple clouds slowly split open, and another circular black hole appeared. It was almost the same as the black hole behind Fury's back, except that it appeared above the world of myriad lightning calamity, and its area was countless times larger. Just like that, a brazen purple light descended from the sky. It was not lightning, but the lightning of life and death. That pure purple light came crashing down from the world of myriad lightning calamity, enveloping the huge light sphere that enveloped Fury's body completely. Fury's figure could no longer be seen. The 15 silver lightning dragons circled around the huge light pillar, merging into it one after another. No one knew what Fury was doing, not even the people on his side. At this time, no one on Jidong's side was idle. Miao Miao raised the staff of the goddess of earth above her head, and a gray light shone from her forehead, shining on the statue of the goddess at the head of the staff of the goddess of earth. The statue that symbolized the goddess of earth shone brightly, and a dazzling halo circled around Miao Miao's body. The goddess seemed to have come to life. She was clearly a statue, but at this moment, she opened her eyes quietly. Miao Miao shouted softly. She raised her hands, and the staff of the goddess of earth floated up and landed steadily. It turned into a flowing light and directly drilled into the ground. In an instant, as far as the eye could see, with the boundary between the 13th layer and the inner 5 layers as far as the eye could see, the ground outside the inner 5 layers turned gray in an instant. Miao Miao put her palms together in front of her chest, and mumbled something. Her eyes had completely turned into a deathly still gray. Yun Tianji, who was standing not far away from her, could clearly feel the life force in Miao Miao's body disappearing at an extremely fast rate. As Miao Miao moved, Ajin, who had completed the release of the scroll, had already leapt out. Without the obstruction of the 200 dark magicians, she moved as fast as lightning. She did not lunge towards the darkness altar, but to the side. Clearly, what the flaming bar had told Jidong had told her. Her goal was very simple, and that was to enter the inner 5 layers. As long as she could alarm any of the sacred beasts on the 5 Saint Mountain in the central 5 layers, she would have achieved her goal. Chapter 310. However, since the darkness heavenly secrets could completely isolate the auras outside of the 5 Saint Mountain, how could they not be prepared for this? When Ajin's body was about to pass through the 2 layers, the 10-colored light reappeared and forcefully bounced her body back. Fortunately, Ajin's flying speed was not too fast. She was bounced dozens of meters away and rolled on the ground, which was why she was not injured. Ajin's actions were not useless. Fury, Jidong, and Misty had already seen through her probing. The 5-elemental yin-yang world formed by part of the power of the 10 great dark stem saints' artifacts actually enveloped the entire 5 inner layers. Such a large area must have caused the defensive power to be scattered. In other words, even if this five-elemental yin-yang world was released by the 10 great artifacts as a foundation, there was still a chance that it could be destroyed. As Ajin flew out, Ji Dong had already moved. He leaped and immediately arrived in front of Yun Tianji. He did not explain, but directly removed the core of life from Yun Tianji's neck. His body flashed, and the second action helped him arrive behind Misty. Misty sensed Ji Dong's aura. Just as she was shocked, she could already feel an unparalleled aura of life surging towards her and instantly fusing with her body. Her life force, which had been rapidly draining in order to release a powerful technique, was almost instantly replenished. Furthermore, the injuries she had suffered when she fused with the goddess of Earth's staff in the past were actually healing at an alarming rate. Misty was shocked. She could clearly feel that there was an extra item on her neck. It was also this item that unleashed the effect of a 1,000-year source of life by more than 10 times. Not only could it unleash the power of the goddess of Earth's staff to the greatest extent, but it also healed her deep-rooted illness. Ji Dong's objective was very simple. He did not want his partner to have any misgivings anymore. The fact that Misty chose to stay had already proven many things. If he still held back towards such an ally, he would not be Ji Dong. The core of life was temporarily carried by Misty. It complemented her goddess of Earth's staff and could unleash her power to the greatest extent. After completing this, Ji Dong tapped lightly on the back of the silver-winged sea easterly with the tip of his toes. He spread his wings and soared into the air, stopping about 50 meters away from Fury. At this time, everyone was doing their best. On the 5 Elements continent side, the 11 people led by Dark Secret Tianji were doing their best to complete the dark ritual. Meanwhile, the 5 people on Ji Dong's side were doing their best to disrupt the dark ritual. Although Yun Tianji could not attack, his eyes flashed with a strange light. The mysterious halo around his waist kept fluctuating in his eyes. The strange magic power of the dark ritual seemed to have been disturbed by some unknown power. It had clearly completed the process of breaking the mirror, but it could not carry out the final fusion. This was a contest between the 2 heavenly secret. Although their strength was so unequal, and Yun Tianji's ability was far inferior to Dark Secret Tianji's, who had the help of the Dark Scepter and the 10 Dark Heavenly Stem Saints, everything he did still played an important role in delaying the completion of the dark ritual. 5 people. They only had 5 people. However, these 5 people worked together and twisted their strength into a rope. They stubbornly gave it their all for the same goal. The sacred evolution fire dragon soared into the air and supported Ji Dong in the air. Intense black and gold light shone on both sides of the sacred evolution fire dragon's body at the same time, instantly forming 2 huge formations that shone on the dragon and Ji Dong's bodies. It was the yin and yang dual fire formation. At the same time, Ji Dong's arms spread out on both sides of his body. A red blazing sword and a blue flaming sword seemed to grow out of his hands. They instantly tore through the void and appeared on both sides of his body. They were each 9 meters long. It was like the sacred evolution fire dragon had grown wings. In the next moment, the 2 heavy swords had completely turned into the colors of extreme flames. The red and blue turned into gold and black. The heavy swords in both hands moved at the same time, drawing a huge strange formation on both sides of his body. It was exactly the same as the 2 formations that had appeared on the sacred evolution fire dragon's body, except that the colors were black and white. 1 man and 1 dragon released the yin and yang dual fire formation at the same time. Although the air was filled with dense lightning, it could not conceal the proud aura of the 2 extreme flames at this moment. Ji Dong's eyes had already turned white. Faint white flames rose from his hands that were holding the hilts of his swords. When this white flame appeared, Dark Tianji's pupils involuntarily contracted a little. He deliberately glanced at Hyoheim, but his expression remained the same. His sonorous chanting was not affected at all. The yin-yang crown that was intertwined with black and white at this moment underwent a miraculous change. The left side was black, and the right side was white. There was a clear distinction. The 6 crowns and 3 stars were already very blurry. The only thing that could be seen clearly was that a strange vortex had appeared where the black and white colors intersected. The vortex was not large, but its appearance seemed to be able to attract everyone's attention. Even the terrifying pillar of lightning that had enveloped Fury's body could not compare to its attraction. Soul vortex. That's right, that was Ji-dong's soul vortex. When he pushed his mental power to the limit, this soul vortex was directly released. It appeared at the core of the yin-yang crown, and the extreme yin-yang fire was raised to the limit in that instant. Mana surged around Ji-dong's body. The divine fire sage monarch armor turned black and white under the extreme dual flames. A huge pair of wings spread open behind his back, and Ji-dong's body began to expand under the crazy mana output. The 2 monarch physiques were released at the same time, but this time, the 2 monarch physiques were no longer 3 meters tall, but 4 meters, forcibly increased by 1 meter. All of Ji-dong's power was reflected in the word limit. He did not leave any room for maneuver. If he couldn't stop the dark ritual from being completed, then everything else would be meaningless. At this moment, he couldn't hold anything back. The blazing sword in his right hand and the flame sword in his left hand were raised high in the sky at the same time. 2 incomparably beautiful flames shot out like lightning. At the same time, deafening dragon roars and snake cries rang out at the same time. 6 dragons and 6 snakes were released from the yin-yang crown without holding back. Those 6 dragons and 6 snakes didn't even hover in the air before they instantly separated. Under the control of Ji-dong's large mental power from the soul vortex, they fused into the blazing sword and flame sword, causing the 2 swords to instantly burst with light. Under the infusion of such tyrannical mana, the edges of the 2 swords had a layer of blood-red color. The white flames on Ji-dong's hands spread along the hilt of the swords. On the inside of the swords, the lowest of the 9 holes was quickly filled with white flames. It was as if 2 pieces of heavenly jade were embedded in it. His will and soul fire had completely fused. A dazzling brilliance was constantly emitted from his body. At this moment, the sovereign's pride was raised to the extreme. The contradictory temperament, the violence and tyranny of the flame sovereign king, and the elegance and coldness of the dark flame devil king, made him look like the reincarnation of 2 great sovereigns. With a bang, the 2 sovereigns changed at this moment. The golden flame sovereign king body instantly turned white. The 4-meter-tall body expanded once again, directly rising to a powerful 7 meters. Ji-dong's main body was at the center of this 7-meter-tall black and white energy body. A terrifying and ruthless aura was completely released. Finally, Weapon Li Yonghao's sunlight changed a little. He could feel the dangerous aura coming from Ji-dong's body. Especially the white flames burning on Ji-dong's hands, it deeply attracted his gaze. A milky white pearl quietly appeared from the center of Ji-dong's chest. It looked like an extremely ordinary gemstone. However, the moment this pearl appeared, the various attributes of the magical elements in the air, apart from the huge lightning pillar covering Fury's body, all flocked over, forming a huge energy whirlpool that directly gathered at Ji-dong's chest. Every vein on Ji-dong's skin that was hidden under the divine flame Saint King armor suddenly swelled up. The huge amount of magical energy that suddenly rushed into his body almost caused his body to explode. If it wasn't for the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation, then he would have already been blown to smithereens by this huge amount of energy. The blaze and blaze swords drew closer to each other in the air. It was different from last time. This time, the blaze sword actually turned completely white, a white that shone with a red light. Forbidden 100,000 brilliant sun cone. Forbidden 100,000 serene flame eyes. The 2 sovereigns' techniques burst forth at this moment. It was as terrifying as if the 2 sovereigns themselves had released them. A brilliant sun appeared on the right side of Ji-dong's back. On the white side, a black moon appeared on the left side of Ji-dong's back. On the black side, the sun and the moon intersected, causing the heaven and earth to change. Black and white, sun and moon, they interweaved in the air to form a magnificent scenery. Merge, blaze and blaze swords, release the brilliance of the ultimate dual flames. The 9-meter-long two-handed heavy sword, along with the bright sun all and the serene flame ice, drew close to each other above Ji-dong's head. The blood-colored light on the scorching sword and the flame sword actually burst forth at the same time, intertwining first, and then the two swords merged. With a loud clang, a soul-piercing hum burst forth from the two heavy swords. The mana condensed on Ji-dong's body, and the enormous energy gathered by the primal chaos bead instantly surged upwards. The bloody light pierced through the sky at this moment. The two swords fused together, and the bloody color on the swords became much denser than before. The dense bloody light swept downwards, enveloping Ji-dong's entire body. Every dark red cloud pattern on the Godfire Saint King armor burst forth with a dazzling light. The armor seemed to have come to life and was happily moaning. The armor that Zhu Yan had poured all his heart and soul into finally entered the ranks of demigod-rank demonic armors with the help of the bloody light. From the looks of it, Ji-dong looked as if he had been dyed red by blood. A red human silhouette quietly appeared behind Ji-dong. The moment the 100-meter-tall silhouette appeared, the sky behind Ji-dong was completely dyed the color of blood. Even the myriad lightning calamity realm in the sky turned blood-red at this moment. This time, the humanoid shadow looked much clearer. Its body seemed to be condensed from flames. The fused blaze and blaze swords were the true fire god's twin swords. This red shadow was shining with the brilliance of the fire god. The soul vortex on Ji-dong's yin-yang crown rapidly rotated. The powerful demonic power that could shock the world and make the gods weep burst forth from the fused fire god's twin swords in his hands. A bloody light that was 100 meters long pierced the sky. The fire god's twin swords once again blossomed with their true brilliance. At this time, the first attack of Ji-dong, Fury, and Miao Miao to land on the 5-element yin-yang boundary was actually Miao Miao. Huge gray crystalline spikes suddenly rushed out from the ground. Each spike was 10 meters long and had a conical shape. They shot towards the darkness altar. With the help of the core of life, Miao Miao was able to unleash the full power of the staff of the Earth Goddess. Even if Ji-dong released the fire god's aura again, it couldn't affect the power of her divine weapon. Boom! The first gray crystalline spike heavily bombarded the 5-element yin-yang boundary and turned it into dust. Then, one spike after another tirelessly launched a barrage of attack. Miao Miao didn't have to carefully control Ajin's probing. She could only try her best to attack the center of the darkness altar. Every gray crystalline spike caused the 5-element yin-yang boundary to tremble slightly. The multicolored light flickered continuously. Its demonic power was being rapidly consumed. After all, the demonic power that Miao Miao possessed wasn't limited to ultimate Earth. Even with the core of life, she couldn't unleash an attack at the level of a super-ultimate technique. However, the Earth Goddess thrusting array that she unleashed was infinitely close to the level of a super-ultimate technique. Just like the space collapse that Fury had unleashed with the Hell Thunder Divine Axe, this was the most powerful technique that she could unleash with all her might. Attacking wasn't her forte. What she needed to do was to consume the demonic power of the 5-element yin-yang boundary as much as possible to buy time for Ji-dong and Fury. It was also at this moment that the pillars of lightning in the sky suddenly converged towards the center. An earth-shattering roar suddenly rang out. The sound of jade shattering was accompanied by rolling thunder. In the next moment, a huge figure that was over 100 meters tall appeared out of thin air. He took a step forward and landed on the ground. Fury, that was Fury, Fury who had transformed into a 100-meter-tall Fury, Fury whose entire body was purple. However, that wasn't Fury, because he was completely condensed from terrifying extreme yang lightning, and was filled with a destructive aura. He didn't have any armor, and his upper body was bare. There was a huge white lightning symbol between his eyebrows, indicating his identity. Chapter 3:11. The hell of Thunder Divine Axe had already disappeared. This was because at this moment, with the help of the myriad lightning calamity realm and Fury unleashed it at all costs, it had completely fused with Fury himself. That was why this 100-meter-tall giant had appeared. This skill was the only primary ultimate skill that Fury could unleash at the moment, Thunder God's Descent. Its effect was very simple. For a certain period of time, Fury would temporarily possess 1/10 of the Thunder God's power. 1/10 sounded very insignificant, but that was 1/10 of a god's power. Even a second-tier god would be an extremely terrifying existence. Roar! Fury's Thunder God roared at the sky. His huge body suddenly bounced up and instantly leaped thousands of meters into the air. He clasped his hands together above his head and formed a huge fist. He descended from the sky and smashed heavily towards the 5 elements yin-yang world. As he smashed his fists down, a lightning black hole that was exactly the same as the one behind his back clearly appeared on his huge fists. Boom! Thunder God's attack caused the sky and earth to change color. At the same time, everyone on the Dark Continent was shocked. Even Darkness Tianji's chanting stopped unconsciously. At this moment, Yun Tianji let out a muffled groan. At the same time, a thick mist of blood spurted out from his 7 orifices. He collapsed to the ground. He had used all his strength to stop Thunder God, but he could no longer resist Darkness Tianji. The moment Thunder God's attack caused the dark ritual to stop, Yun Tianji finally couldn't hold on any longer. However, he didn't faint. His body slumped to the ground, but his eyes were wide open. He could vaguely feel something. He could feel that the 5 elements yin-yang world could no longer be an obstacle. Opportunity. Was this the slim chance of survival? He had to see it all with his own eyes. Boom! Thunder God's fist smashed into the 5 elements of yin and yang boundary like a nuclear explosion. The 5 elements of yin and yang boundary, which had only been rippling and dimming by the metal storm, began to vibrate violently. Vaguely, there seemed to be a faint cracking sound. Darkness Tianji had already reacted. His high-pitched voice became shrill. At this moment, he could no longer remain calm. Time was everything to both sides. At this moment, a strange silver light shot out from Thor's back, hitting the back of his head. This silver light was like a bridge, connecting the blood-red tyrant and Thor's Thunder Monarch. The red light that seemed to be able to pierce through the heavens broke through the air at this moment. It was like a raging blood-colored dragon that soared into the sky. Thor's body leaped into the air once more. It was almost time for him to descend upon the human world. Fury's mana was not enough to fully support this ultimate skill. He only had one last attack left. Thor, who was hundreds of meters tall, opened his hand in the air. The Vulcan sword fell from the sky, and the hilt landed in Thor's hand. At that moment, Ji-Dong, Fury, Tyrant, and Thor roared at the same time. Shatter, yin-yang world of 5 elements. Dazzling lightning swept out in an instant, covering the surface of the blood-red fire god's sword with a layer of the thunder god's purple color. The 100-meter-tall body swung the 100-meter-long sword and descended from the sky as if it was cleaving the heavens and the earth. This sword carried the full power of the Thunder Monarch and Tyrant. This sword also carried the hope of the entire radiant 5 elements continent. This was a sword intertwined with life and death, and it was also a sword that determined fate. Ji-Dong's soul vortex was connected to Thor's first attack. At this moment, both Ji-Dong and Fury had a huge circular array behind their backs. This was the assimilation array that they had both comprehended. This was also the message that Ji-Dong had transmitted to Thor through his soul vortex. Assimilation as a guide, the twin gods' harmonious harmony. This was the fusion of the fire god and the thunder god. It was the ultimate assimilation. At this moment, under the effects of the assimilation array and the mana of the two gods, the dual attributes of fire and thunder had truly completed the effect of combining. This sword had completely surpassed the power of a single intermediate ultimate skill. It had truly entered the category of an advanced ultimate skill. Boom, buzz, crack, the bewitching red rebounded and flew uncontrollably into the sky. The 100-meter-long red sword instantly shrunk to its original length of 9 meters. The thunder god's body disappeared. Fury, who was bare-chested, was sent flying while clutching the Hellthunder divine axe. Blood spurted out from his mouth and nose. Apart from the Hellthunder god, he could no longer release any mana from his body. The thunder god and the fire god's sacrifice came with a price. In the midst of the cracking sound, the 10-colored radiance of the yin-yang world of 5 elements instantly rose to its peak. Like a shattered glass, it turned into specks of crystal light and dissipated in the air. In the end, Weapon Li Yonghao's expression turned into despair. He could feel that the dark ritual was only a step away, and it only needed a few moments. However, the 9-meter-long red sword had already descended from the sky once again. After all, the fire god was in existence above the thunder god. Ji Dong's chaotic flames had helped the fire god's dual swords regain a ninth of their true power. Even though the previous bombardment had consumed most of their mana, the 9-meter-long sword was still red. At this moment, Ji Dong's saint-grade mental strength controlled the fire god's dual swords to descend from the sky once again. Its target was Dark Divination, who was chanting the last few notes. Dark Divination couldn't stop Ji Dong's attack, and the 10 Darkness Saints couldn't either. They could only watch helplessly as the fire god's sword descended from the sky and slashed at what they had been waiting for 1,000 years. The eyes of the Darkness Saints were filled with despair. Their dark ritual was in itself a heaven-defying act. Once they were discovered by the sacred beast of the 5-Saint Mountain, they would have to face the wrath of the sacred beast. Even if they had the 10 Darkness Saints, they wouldn't be able to contend with the power of the sacred beast given their current strength. The only outcome would be total annihilation, and the 5 Elements continent might not be able to recover from this setback. They might even be attacked by the 5 Elements continent. However, unlike the despair in the eyes of the 10 Darkness Saints, Dark Divination didn't look at the fire god's sword that was descending from the sky. He didn't seem to have any intention of stopping his chanting. Instead, his gaze turned even colder, and there was even a hint of mockery in it. Just as the blood-red sword was about to destroy Dark Divination in an instant, a transparent halo suddenly spread out at the most crucial moment. It formed a thin barrier of light that enveloped the entire altar. With a crisp clang, the fire god's sword was repelled once again. This time, all of the fire god's mana had been used up. The blood-red color disappeared, and the fire god's sword split into 2 swords once again, flying into the distance. The blood-red light on Ji Dong's body receded at the same time. Feng Wu could no longer maintain the dragon snake transformation, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. However, the psychological blow he suffered was even more severe than his physical one. No, this is impossible! Ji Dong and Fury roared at almost the same time. Their despair changed. The final attack that they had put everything into had actually been nullified just like that. Even though the transparent barrier had shattered in an instant, it had nullified Ji Dong's final attack after all. Jin immediately charged toward the dark altar in an attempt to put up a final effort. However, there were people faster than her. 7 figures leaped out diagonally like 7 bolts of lightning, heading straight for the dark altar. One of them blocked Jin, who was charging toward the dark altar, while the other 6 headed straight for the altar. Seeing these 7 people, Ji Dong and Fury's hearts turned cold. Their eyes were bloodshot. They never expected that the ones who blocked the final attack of Ji Dong's fire god's sword would be them. They were from the Radiant's 5 Elements continent, and they were supposed to bear the responsibility of fighting against the dark divination saint. Ji Dong clearly remembered these 7 people. In the previous battle between the holy and evil, it was because of their selfishness that they almost caused the heavenly divination army to suffer great losses. They were the Radiance 5 Elements Continents Saint. Among the Radiance 5 Elements Saints, Ji Dong and First Wood Element Yao Qianshu were not present. There were only these 7 people left. The one who blocked Jin was the leader of the Radiance 5 Elements Saint, Ao Feng. He laughed proudly and raised his hands in front of him at the same time. A huge golden shield appeared in front of him and blocked Jin's Widowmaker. His laughter was so ear-piercing in the ears of Ji Dong and the others. They were so furious that they could no longer curse. Others might not be able to tell, but with Ji Dong's vast spiritual power, how could he not sense it? The transparent light shield was released by these 7 people. It was also a scroll, a super ultimate killing skill scroll. However, it was a defensive super ultimate killing skill, eternal protection. Ha 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 ha, you didn't expect this, did you? Ha 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 ha, you didn't expect this, did you? Last time, you stole the divine lightning axe. This time, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind. The 10 great divine artifacts are ours. What bullshit, Saint Ruler? Ji Dong, fury, just you wait. We'll settle the debt with you after we take the 10 great divine artifacts. Ji Dong, hand over your dual fire crystal crown. Ji Dong felt his vision go black. He was so furious that he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He already understood why Ao Feng and the others would appear at this time without attracting the attention of either side. They must have comprehended the invisibility formation of the 5 elements formation. As long as they didn't use any mana, the invisibility formation could conceal any aura they released. With the existence of the invisibility formation, they hid in the side and waited for this last opportunity. Their target was the exclusive divine tools of the radiant heavenly disciples. For their own selfish desires, they had actually blocked his fire god's sword. Needless to say, it was because they were afraid that the power of his fire god's sword would be too great and destroy those 10 divine weapons. Bastards, bastards! Ji Dong wished he could tear these 7 people in front of him into 1,000 pieces. He had never imagined that at the last moment, the ones who had blocked him were not enemies, but his own people who also belonged to the Radiance continent. Apart from Ao Feng who blocked Jin, the other 6 radiant heavenly disciples had already rushed in front of the darkness altar. However, the moment they rushed forward, Dark Tianji's high-pitched chanting suddenly stopped. Thank you all. Destiny cannot be changed. After 1,000 years of accumulation of darkness, fate has long been prepared to stand on the side of darkness. All of you must die, and the light will also be devoured by the darkness. Dark Tianji's voice rang in the ears of everyone from the radiant heavenly disciples. At the same time, an incomparable layer of black suddenly bloomed from Dark Tianji's body. The entire altar instantly turned into nothingness, and 5 huge black symbols floated into the sky. The 6 radiant heavenly disciples that rushed forward felt an irresistible force instantly rebound, and the 6 of them were sent flying. Ao Feng's laughing face froze, and the air was also filled with an incomparably strange mana fluctuation. No, no! Ao Feng shouted in disbelief. He couldn't believe that such a change could happen in such a short period of time. Yes, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind. However, they were the aureole that blocked the hope of the radiant heavenly disciples. The darkness ritual had been completed in such a short period of time. Yun Tianji closed his eyes in pain. He seemed to see the last trace of life being severed. The darkness ritual had been completed, and no one could stop the release of this darkness. Almost at the same time, the myriad lightning calamity realm in the sky had already turned a deep black, and the light on the ground had also dimmed. Under the protection of the ultimate weapon Li Yonghao and the 10 dark-stemmed saints, Dark divination slowly raised the dark scepter in his hand. The skull at the top of the dark scepter seemed to have come to life, and a strange light flashed in its eyes. The 5 huge black magic patterns that flew into the sky instantly expanded, and their colors became 5 different colors. Ji Dong could only vaguely distinguish that the red color was exactly the same as his fire god's power. Do you know what this is? This is the contract of God. When the Holy Evil Island was formed, the 20 saints worked together to create the Holy Evil Island and the realm of myriad thunder purgatory, which also triggered the contract of God. Now, with the help of the 10 dark artifacts, I have once again replicated the contract and the original ceremony. There are too few records of these things in your Radiance continent. In the end, you can only go to destruction. No one can stop me anymore. Next, you will die in extreme fear. Your strength is indeed very strong, beyond my expectations. Unfortunately, you still can't change your fate of destruction. Even I don't know who will help me complete this dark ceremony in the end. I didn't expect that the one who will resist you in the end would be the Saints of Radiance heavenly stems. This is really ironic, isn't it? Go, God's contract. The power of the holy beast shall henceforth belong to the darkness. Chapter 3:12. 5 beams of colorful light surged out at the same time and flew towards the 5 sacred mountains. When they flew up, the dark world seemed to light up again. However, not only did the 5-colored light not ignite any hope, but it also brought Ji Dong and the others a deathly stillness. Ji Dong had always hated the feeling of being out of control. There was no doubt that he couldn't do anything now. The 7 radiant heavenly stem saints, led by Ao Feng, finally realized that something was wrong. They frantically circulated their mana and wanted to launch a counterattack. However, they were shocked to find that even with their extreme mana, they couldn't gather it at all. In the sky, the dark realm of infinite lightning calamity weighed heavily on their hearts and suppressed all their mana undulations. This was true suppression, an irresistible suppression. Only the darkness heavenly stem saints, who were enveloped by the black light on Dark Fate's body, weren't affected at all. Ajin stopped moving. Her tiny hands were already tightly gripping the staff of the goddess of earth. Her eyes were already lifeless, and even the core of life hanging around her neck couldn't transmit any aura of life to her. Ji Dong and Fury got up from the ground. The sacred evolution fire dragon and the purple thunder brilliant sky dragon were suppressed by the immense power of the realm of infinite lightning calamity, and they couldn't move at all. All they could do now was watch Dark Fate's every move. With a loud rumble, Dark Fate roared towards the sky. He spread his arms and an incomparably black aura burst out from his body, fusing with the world of myriad lightning calamity in the sky. In an instant, bolts of lightning flickered incessantly on the ground. The black world of myriad lightning calamity, along with a vast amount of demonic energy that was as vast as the sea of stars, violently fluctuated, as if the entire world would be destroyed in the next moment. A ray of green light flew over from afar, and an angry and frightened voice echoed in the sky. "Not good, we're still too late." The chrysanthemum pig had finally arrived, but he was already too late. The green light barrier enveloped his body, as well as Yao Qianshu, Lan Bauer, Du Exiner, and Du Ming on his back. The chrysanthemum pig's body, which was over 100 meters long, seemed so small under the heavy pressure of the myriad lightning calamity realm. Dark Fate couldn't help but be stunned when he saw it. A wood-type sacred beast? How is this possible? Why aren't you in the 5-Saint Mountain? He, who had always been extremely calm, actually became flustered and exasperated. The chrysanthemum pig landed on the ground, and a large patch of green light surged, enveloping Ji Dong, Fury, Miao Miao, Yun Tianji, and Ajin, as well as their sacred beasts. Everyone felt their bodies lighten, and the pressure from the outside world seemed to have lessened a lot. They could already move. Moreover, an extremely large amount of life aura surged into their bodies, playing a very powerful healing effect. In just a few breaths, everyone's injuries had already recovered. Only Yun Tianji was still lying on the ground. What he had been injured was not his body. Chrysanthemum Pig, think of something. Ji Dong called out urgently. Chrysanthemum Pig painfully closed his eyes and said, "There's no other way, there's no other way. The boundary of infinite thunderbolts to prison has been completely activated. That black-cloved man has become the eye of the formation. The entire boundary is under his control. Do you know what the boundary of infinite thunderbolts to prison is? It's an ultimate technique that can destroy heaven and earth. Even us saint beasts can't resist it. It's over, it's all over. You'll die a graveless death, and so will I. Within the scope of the boundary of infinite thunderbolts to prison, all living things will be destroyed by the tribulation lightning." At this moment, 4 streaks of rainbow light rose up from the 5 Saint Mountain at the center of the island at the same time. They directly flew over. They seemed to be 5 huge balls of light that flickered with red, yellow, white, and black colors. Seeing the 4 lights, the Chrysanthemum Pig's expression immediately changed. "Ah, it's my 4 brothers. The divine contract has been completed as well?" As the 4 rays of light flew closer, they could vaguely see that each ray of light was imprisoning a boar-shaped magical beast that looked exactly like the Chrysanthemum Pig. They also had the same chrysanthemum pattern on their backs, but the color of their bodies was different from the Chrysanthemum Pig's. They represented the 4 elements of fire, earth, metal, and water respectively. The 4 lights directly landed on the top of Dark Divination's head. He raised his dark scepter high and roared angrily, "I missed wood, I actually missed wood. I wasted my divine contract. You all deserve to die, you all deserve to die. The divine contract, the power of God's control. 4 sacred beasts, heed my command, fuse." As he said that, his dark scepter guided the 4 lights to fall on his body at the same time. Suddenly, the 4 lights made him look extremely dazzling. Even the 10 Dark Divination saints around him were shaken by the sudden appearance of the vast energy. However, Dark Divination had left a layer of dark magic on each of them, so they wouldn't be affected by the myriad lightning calamity realm. In the end, this thought suddenly appeared in Li Yonghao's mind. He still clearly remembered that before entering the holy evil battlefield, Dark Divination had said that he would let him have his revenge after completing the 1,000-year goal. But now, the magic of the 4 sacred beasts had already fused into his body. How could Li Yonghao kill him? He was simply deceiving himself, and even deceiving everyone on the 5 Elements continent. The fall of the 10th generation of Dark Divination was exchanged for the rise of Dark Divination. However, it was too late to say anything now. Just like how Ji Dong and the others couldn't stop all of this, even the Dark Divination saints couldn't stop this scene from happening. Through the dark ritual, Dark Divination had completely controlled the power of the entire holy evil island. No one could compete with him anymore. Du Exen asked the Chrysanthemum Pig, "Piggy, why is that guy so angry? Why did he say it was a waste of a divine contract?" The Chrysanthemum Pig said painfully, "He should have completed the 5 divine contracts and tried to control the 5 Saint Mountain at the same time, trying to control the 5 sacred beasts at the same time. If he could fuse with the 5 sacred beasts through the divine contract, then his power is very likely to become a god, the lowest level 3 god. But he's still a god. What does it mean for a god to appear in the human world? He can control and conquer your entire continent by himself without any army. Now without my power, the 5 elements can't reinforce and restrain each other, so he can't become a god. His power is at most at the peak of the saint realm, which is meaningless to us. With the control of the holy evil island, even if he's not a god, he can still destroy everything on the holy evil island, and even direct the holy evil island to bombard the 5 elements continent. You're right, you're all going to die, no one can live anymore. Go crazy, the holy evil island, you've been accumulating for 1,000 years, It's time for you to show your power. The ultimate killing skill, the skill that only a god can release. Let me see how you can destroy the holy evil island and the 5 elements continent. Surrounded by the 4-colored light, Dark Fate roared crazily. He was no longer the calm wise man from before, but a lunatic, a complete lunatic. The black pillar of light pierced through the sky once again. In the next moment, the frenzied roars of thunder made everyone unable to hear anything else. The black world of myriad lightning calamity fluctuated violently, and incomparably terrifying mana fluctuations bloomed in the sky. That was the combination of yang and yin lightning. Along with flashes of lightning, a huge black thunderbolt as thick as a water tank fell from the sky. Boom, the first thunderbolt fell on the cyan boundary set up by the chrysanthemum holy pig. His huge body trembled violently, and cracks appeared on the boundary. At this moment, thousands of black thunderbolts fell from the sky, engulfing the entire holy evil island. When the second wave of black thunderbolts suddenly hit the cyan boundary, the entire boundary was shattered. The chrysanthemum holy pig, Jidong, Fury, Yao Qianshu, Lan Bauer, Du Xener, Du Ming, Yun Tianji, Miao Miao, Jin, all of them appeared under the holy evil island without any protection. When the next wave of thunder came, they would be erased from this world. Darkimu Saint Scorpion's gaze fell on Jidong. Her heart was filled with sorrow. Not only her, but the hearts of the dark heavenly stem saints were also filled with the same emotions. Their goal had always been to conquer the radiant 5 elements continent, take control of a region, and truly regain their freedom. They would no longer be enslaved by the dark heavenly secret dojo. However, now they understood that this was no longer possible. The dark heavenly secret dojo was still their controller, the controller of life and everything. Although they would not be erased by the holy evil island, was it really comfortable to be enslaved? The sorrow in their eyes was not for the devil masters of the radiant 5 elements continent, but for themselves. The ultimate sure kill skill, the holy evil island, was finally activated. If the power of the fire god and the thunder god that Jidong and Fury used before was said to have borrowed a small part of the power of the gods, then this holy evil island was equivalent to an all-out attack of a god, an attack that could destroy the heavens and the earth. That was a crazy power, an extremely crazy power. In the midst of the violent roar, the earth was trembling, and the sky was black, no other color could be seen. The ultimate sure kill skill was destroying everything. All the mysteries of the holy evil island that had existed for thousands of years would be destroyed at this moment. The third layer of the holy evil island. Sorcerer Wu Yi of the Heavenly Stem Legion, who had come from the 5 elements mainland, stared blankly at the blackness above his head. None of them understood what was happening. However, they could no longer gather their strength. They could only watch helplessly as bolts of lightning fell from the pitch-black sky. One by one, bodies were turned to ashes by the violent lightning. At the intersection of the 3rd and 4th layers of the holy evil island, in a cave that was nearly 100 meters underground, 4 people were huddled together, trembling violently. The deafening roar and the terrifying pressure of the holy evil island made them feel so small. Not far away from them, there was a magical beast egg. They were lucky, at least they did not have to bear the destructive power of the holy evil island directly. Hundreds of meters underground, the ground blocked the roar of the thunder tribulation for them, and all lives on the surface would be destroyed. Only underground could they have a moment of safety. The 4 people who went underground to find the magical beast egg were Zhu Gui, Bissou, Kar, and Ling Yu, who had a close relationship with Jidong. Radiant 5 elements continent, Hai Bin of the East Sea. Look, what's going on? A patrolling soldier pointed in the direction of the holy evil island in horror. The next moment, the patrolling soldiers saw the passage that had been maintained on the shore suddenly break, and the gloomy clouds in the distance had turned black in an instant. The deafening roar made the ordinary soldiers fall to the ground one by one. Their bodies were so weak that they could not move. The 5 radiant dragons also rushed out of their respective tents when the thunder roared. What they saw was the spreading darkness, which was the scene of the myriad lightning calamity realm spreading towards the coast of the East Sea. Not good, retreat. Stone Dragon Song Ruelong issued the last order in his life. However, no matter how fast a person was, how could he be compared to the clouds, especially the tribulation clouds of the holy evil island? At this moment, 6 beams of colorful light shot into the sky at the same time. 6 figures shone with dazzling brilliance at the same time. The brilliant gold and black represented the extreme yang fire and the extreme yin fire. The thick gold and gray represented the extreme yang earth and the extreme yin earth. The cold black and purple represented the extreme yang water and the extreme yin water. The change of the holy evil island caused the 6 supreme experts of the radiant 5 elements continent to move at the same time. The 9 Crowns realm was the limit of the Devil Masters. Led by the radiant crown lord Yin Chaoyang, the 6 supreme experts exerted their full strength to form a huge 6-colored light barrier in the sky, trying to compete with the holy evil island in the sky and buy time for the coalition army below. Now that they could not find out the reason for the change of the holy evil island, what they wanted to do was to reduce the casualties as much as possible. However, in the next moment their expressions changed. The terrifying pressure of the myriad thunder calamity realm made it impossible for them to continue flying in the air. This terrifying power was completely unimaginable to these 9 crown-level powerhouses. All they could see and feel was an irresistible power. Fortunately, they were 9 crown-level powerhouses and were not as immobile as the people below them. Chapter 3:13. Rumble, as if sensing the intention of the 9 supreme being experts to resist, a black bolt of lightning descended from the sky from the tribulation clouds that had already spread over. It was an attack that was completely comparable to a high-grade sure-kill skill. In an instant, the brilliance of the 6-colored light barrier was reduced to the extreme. Yin Chaoyang clenched his teeth and exerted all his demonic power. Let's go. There was no point in staying any longer. As the supreme beings of the radiant 5 elements mainland, the only thing they could do now was to preserve their strength as much as possible and leave a seed of hope for the radiant 5 elements mainland. The 6 supreme beings flew up at the same time. Each of them exerted their demonic power to the maximum. Dazzling halos of demonic power scattered toward the crowd and shrouded the high-level devil masters as much as possible. In the next moment, they had already flown up and fled to the depths of the mainland before the world of lightning calamity completely enveloped them. The power of the heavenly lightning descended from the sky. The 6 supreme beings were lucky because the core of the world of lightning calamity was on the holy evil island. After all, the power that could enter the radiant 5 elements mainland was much weaker, which gave them a chance to escape. However, there were more people who couldn't leave. Every time the black thunderbolt descended, thousands of the most elite warriors of the radiant 5 elements mainland would be turned into ashes. There was no blood, only destruction and death. At this moment, the world of lightning calamity suddenly shook violently. The speed at which it was spreading seemed to have slowed down a little, and the speed at which the thunderbolts descended also slowed down. It seemed that its power was weakening. The 6 supreme beings took advantage of this opportunity and finally rushed out of the world of lightning calamity's range. As soon as they got rid of the enormous pressure, they increased their speed to the maximum and flew toward the depths of the mainland with the few devil masters that they had rescued. At the same time, in the Vermilion Bird Cave in the Earth Spirit Mountain Range, the Vermilion Bird, who was quietly cultivating on the Phoenix Blood Parasol tree, suddenly widened her eyes without warning. Following that, she clearly sensed that a shackle in her body seemed to have instantly collapsed. Years of suppression and seal had suddenly disappeared, and the feeling of regaining freedom made her want to sing out loud. However, the next moment, her eyes were filled with shock, because she suddenly remembered what it meant when the seal was broken. The Holy Evil Island, the defense of the Holy Evil Island was broken. The Five Elements continent was in an unprecedented crisis. Only when the defense of the Holy Evil Island was broken by the Five Elements continent, the other 9 saint beasts, except for the flying serpent, would the seal be broken. The Holy Evil Island, the battle between the Holy and Evil Saint. Right now, it should be the time for the battle between the Holy and Evil Saint. Ji-dong should also be on the Holy Evil Island. My daughter, my daughter! With a mournful phoenix cry, the vermilion bird instantly rushed out of the cave residence. The terrifying demonic wave that she emitted caused all the magical beasts in the Earth Spirit Mountain range to tremble. In the next moment, the terrifying aura had already gone far away. At the same time, in the other 8 places on the Five Elements continent, 8 terrifying auras simultaneously broke free from the binding formation. They only had one target, the Holy Evil Island. At this moment, the Holy Evil Island had become the focus of the Five Elements continent and the Light continent. This was also a turning point in history. 1,000 years of peace had suddenly collapsed at this moment. The balance between the 2 continents had been broken. The Holy Evil Island. The second wave of lightning instantly destroyed the defense of the chrysanthemum pig. The wood attribute Saint Beast could not help but let out a muffled groan. Another layer of cyan light surged out of its body, and it continued to resist the bombardment of the lightning tribulation. However, not everyone on the Radiant's Five Elements continent had such luck. For example, the Radiant's heavenly stem holy disciples, who thought that they were the aureole, became the last straw that broke the camel's back before the catastrophe arrived. The cyan light of the chrysanthemum pig did not cover their bodies. The eyes of the 7 radiant heavenly stem holy disciples, led by Radiant Earth holy disciple Ao Feng and Radiant Gung Metal holy disciple Guan Ruo, were filled with despair and fear. Because of fear, Guan Ruo's legs were already wet. He actually lost control of himself under the enormous pressure of the myriad lightning calamity realm. They did not have the time to regret, as it was meaningless. They could not gather any of the demonic power that they thought was infallible. All they could see was the black lightning tribulation descending from the sky. When the first wave of lightning tribulation descended, they were lucky that the chrysanthemum pig attracted them. The huge demonic wave only lifted their bodies into the air. They did not even have the chance to scream. Under the might of the ultimate technique, they were already scared out of their wits. Greed and selfishness had a price to pay. But even if they died 100 times, they couldn't atone for their sins. Thousands of people in the Radiance continent and the Holy Evil Island would be buried with them. Boom. Ao Feng's body was the first to be hit by the heavenly lightning. Amidst the loud explosion, his body did not directly turn into ashes. However, what was even more terrifying was that after he was hit, his entire body swelled up like a balloon. The surface of his skin turned completely black. In the next moment, amidst the violent explosion, Ao Feng's body was blown into pieces. His flesh, internal organs, and bones were scattered in the sky. Only after the terrifying lightning tribulation did he finally turn into ashes. All that was left was a 6-crown crystal crown shaped like a sun crown. It was a transparent yellow topaz and looked like a topaz. 5 years had passed, and his mana still hadn't reached the 7-crown level. This was the crystal crown that the light used to defeat the saint. Even the myriad lightning calamity realm couldn't destroy it directly. The lightning that fell from the sky didn't seem to be able to sense its existence and would only look for other sunmarks. After Ao Feng was Guan Ruo. However, he was not killed by the heavenly lightning. The moment before the heavenly lightning landed on his body, he was truly scared out of his wits. He lost control of his bowels and was scared to death. Even so, the myriad lightning calamity realm had no intention of letting him go. It seemed that the greed of the radiant heavenly saints had angered him. Guan Ruo's body and the filth he had discharged were instantly turned into ashes. Just like Ao Feng, The only thing left of him was the radiant Gung gold crystal crown. Next, the radiant Ewood Saint, radiant Sixth Saint, radiant Exian Gold Saint, radiant Ninth Water Saint, and radiant 10th Water Saint followed in Ao Feng's and Guan Ruo's footstep. Before they died, they only had one thought in their minds. If there was a next life, they would not be so greedy and selfish. However, would there really be a next life? Their bodies and souls had already been completely purified by the terrifying myriad lightning calamity realm. This was the true destruction of their bodies and souls. This was the end that they deserved. Not far away, Dark Tianji, who was shrouded in a four-colored halo, quietly looked over. His body was expanding and had already grown to a height of 3 meters. It was a complete physical transformation. On the surface of his body, different colored armors were rapidly appearing. His torso and head were covered in thick yellow armor. His left arm and left hand were covered in golden light, his right arm and right hand were covered in fiery red light, and his left leg was covered in black light. The 4 great saint beasts had already been completely sealed in his body. The power of the 4 great saint beasts was also going through the final fusion with his body. Just like what Chrysanthemum Pig had said, without the power of the wood saint beasts, he could no longer complete the fusion of the 5 elements and become a god in one step. However, the power of the 4 great saint beasts was already enough to make him incomparably powerful. With the help of the 10 great darkness divine tools, he could only condense 5 divine contracts, and all of them had been used up. He could no longer fuse with Chrysanthemum Pig's power, but he could still control the myriad lightning calamity realm to destroy. With the power of the 4 great saint beasts, who could contend against him? Die, all of you can go to hell. Would attribute Saint Beast, I really want to see how many heavenly lightning bolts you can withstand. Even if you're a god, you won't be able to stop what's about to happen. I, Darkness Tianji, will definitely become the ruler of the entire world, ruling over light and darkness. Despair flickered in everyone's eyes. Ji Dong and the others could only watch helplessly as all of this happened. Amidst the huge explosion, the Chrysanthemum Pig's 100-meter-long body violently trembled. The spirit formation he had released had already collapsed once more. However, the black lightning that came one after another wouldn't give him the chance to condense another layer of defense. Will even God be unable to stop you? Suddenly, a dreamy voice rang out in the sky. The voice sounded very gentle and beautiful. In that instant, the beautiful voice actually covered the sound of the lightning bolts descending from the myriad lightning calamity boundary. Dark Tianji's hysterical voice came to an abrupt halt. His eyes widened as he stared in front of him in disbelief. In the sky, a gorgeous red light quietly spread. A red door quietly opened in the sky. A graceful and perfect red figure quietly stepped out. The instant she stepped out of the door, the black lightning bolts descending on Chrysanthemum Pig and everyone from the 5 elements continent were completely blocked. A faint red light condensed into a gentle yet incomparably firm barrier of light that enveloped everyone's bodies. As for that perfect figure, she allowed the black lightning bolts to descend from the sky and land on her body before quietly disappearing. No, this is impossible. Who are you? Dark Tianji stared dumbfoundedly at the figure that had suddenly appeared in the sky. Even though he had already merged with the power of the 4 great sacred beasts, he still felt his soul trembling like never before. It was a tall woman with a perfect golden ratio. She wore a long red robe and had long, wavy red hair draped over her back. Beneath her feet was a beautiful red lotus. Lai Yen. Ji Dong could finally speak in the red light, but his voice was trembling. The person who had crossed the void and blocked the myriad lightning calamity boundary for them was the Earth Core Empress, who had clearly told him many times not to use any power in the human world. Yes, the flaming bar had come. She had broken through layers of barriers at all costs and arrived at Ji Dong's side just as he was about to perish. When Ji Dong and Fury were doing their best to destroy the dark ritual, the flaming bar had been silently watching. At that moment, she had already resolved herself in her heart. For her lover, for Ji Dong's survival, no matter what price she had to pay, she would not regret it. When she saw that the dark ritual was about to be broken, she was really happy. However, what happened next made her heart turn cold. The Holy Evil Saint Island was surrounded by incomparably powerful devil energy, and was under immense pressure from the myriad lightning tribulation realm. However, she still came. She broke through the void and came to Ji Dong's side when he needed her the most. The myriad lightning calamity boundary, this terrifying ultimate technique, continuously bombarded the top of the flaming bar's head, but she just stood calmly on her origin red lotus, silently enduring it. Her cold eyes pierced the depths of dark divination's eyes. Dark divination panic. Darkness Tianji panic. That was an ultimate sure-kill technique. Why was this woman who had suddenly appeared able to block even an ultimate sure-kill technique? No, this was impossible. This couldn't be real. The flaming bar slowly raised her head and looked at the myriad lightning calamity boundary in the sky. Each of her movements was so perfect. Her cold eyes were filled with sadness. My little lover, I'm afraid I'm going to leave you soon, but no matter what price I have to pay, I can't just watch you die. Ji Dong, do you know, I finally understand what love is? Love should be dedication. For the people I love, no matter what price I have to pay, I will not hesitate. Perhaps, at this moment, I already have the same heart as you humans. She raised her right hand and pointed to the sky. A brilliant red flame, even more gorgeous than the blood-red flame of Ji Dong's fire god sword, rose from the flaming bar's right hand. The red pillar of fire soared to the sky and fiercely pierced into the top of the myriad lightning calamity boundary. In an instant, a touch of red appeared in the black tribulation clouds. All the plants and magical beasts had been destroyed in the previous lightning tribulation, but there was finally a ray of light on the Holy Evil Island. Yes, this was the light brought by the flaming bar. The myriad lightning calamity boundary was stirred up by this gorgeous red light and gradually calmed down. In the center of the red light, it was rapidly being devoured by the red flame like melting snow. The flaming bar not only withstood the bombardment of the ultimate technique, but also used her own power to destroy the body of the myriad lightning calamity boundary. Chapter 3:14. There was finally a glimmer of hope in Yun Tianji's weak eyes. His voice was trembling. Could it be that she is the only chance of survival for our Radiant's 5 Elements mainland? Yes, she is. Just as darkness is destined to come, our chance of survival is also destined to appear. Everyone on the Radiant's 5 Elements mainland was stunned, especially Lon Bauer and Du Exit. They had both seen the flaming bar before. Lon Bauer had even seen the true appearance of the flaming bar. All along, in their impression, the flaming bar was mysterious. Lon Bauer also knew that she possessed peerless perfection. However, they could never have guessed that this mysterious red-haired woman, the woman Ji Dong had entrusted his heart and soul to, also possessed peerless power. A power that was enough to compete with the ultimate killing skill. Du Exiner murmured, "Sister Red Hair is really beautiful. Is she here to protect Brother Ji Dong?" Lon Bauer's eyes gradually became numb, and there was some understanding in them. Her eyes turned from the flaming bar to Ji Dong. At this moment, she finally understood why Ji Dong loved the flaming bar so much, and she finally admitted her failure. Before this moment, although she knew that her appearance could not be compared with the flaming bar, she had always thought that she would definitely treat Ji Dong better than the flaming bar and love him more. However, at this moment, when she saw the flaming bar crossing the void and quietly standing in front of Ji Dong at the moment when he was facing life and death, she was really moved. Her eyes were already blurred. She did not know if she would have such courage if it were her. Ji Dong's body was trembling. As a tyrant of the generation, his body had completely recovered with the help of Chrysanthemum Pig. Even under the effect of Chrysanthemum Pig's saint-level wood attribute magic, the fire seed in his body was reignited, and his magic was recovering at an extremely terrifying speed. However, his body was still trembling because of the flaming bar. Why did you come? That was the ultimate killing skill. Raging flames, I'd rather die than see you suffer even the slightest injury. The feeling of pain gnawed at his heart. In the past year, he had always thought that he had the power to protect raging flames, especially after he was able to unleash the power of the fire god's dual swords and condense the chaos bead. He was full of confidence in himself. However, it was only at this moment that he realized how far away his strength was, and how insignificant he was in the face of true ultimate power. When he saw the flaming bar for the first time, Ji-dong heard her talk about the ultimate killing skill. At that time, the flaming bar told him that there were 5 categories of magic skills, namely, the standard skill, the hit skill, the killer skill, the super killer skill, and the ultimate killer skill. At that time, Ji-dong had just started to practice, and was not even a magic master. He only had vague memories of the flaming bar's words, but did not understand how important the meaning was. Until he really had his own killer skill and super killer skill, he could imagine what the ultimate killer skill was. The myriad thunder calamity realm, the terrible power that enveloped the entire holy evil island for thousands of years and stopped the holy war between the 2 continents for thousands of years, was the ultimate killer skill. And she, the one he loved the most, actually blocked the ravaging of the ultimate killer skill for him. Dark Tianji couldn't believe what he was seeing. The moment he had activated the myriad lightning calamity realm, the moment the dark ritual was completed, he had gained control of everything. Even though he had lost one holy beast, it was as if he had already ruled over 2 continents. He was filled with excitement and arrogance. At this time, the appearance of the flaming bar was like a basin of ice water that was poured on him. The power that he could not understand was completely beyond his ability to predict. No, 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 this is impossible, this is impossible. No, 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 this is impossible, this is impossible. God, why would a god appear to stop me? Why? Gods can't interfere in human wars because humans are a race created by God. This is God's rule. Even a god king can't go against it. You? What kind of god are you? How dare you come to the human world? The flaming bar smiled faintly when she saw the horrified look on Dark Tianji's face. Her smile was so cold, and her perfect eyes were no longer perfect, as they were filled with endless killing intent. The flaming bar also raised her other hand. She actually still had the strength to target Dark Tianji even though she was stirring up the myriad thunder calamity realm with all her might. You are a human who is willing to sacrifice yourself to the darkness. I have never thought of interfering with the affairs of the human world. However, your actions have already threatened the people I love. I can tell you that I am not from the divine world, and I should not be here. However, I had to come. You have activated the world of myriad lightning calamity, causing the lives of countless people to be plunged into misery and suffering. Today, I will act on behalf of the heavens and destroy your body and soul. As she said that, a small red lotus floated out from the left hand of the flaming bar. It floated in the air and slowly flew towards Dark Tianji. The small red lotus didn't seem to have any mana fluctuations, but its appearance caused Dark Tianji's expression to change drastically. In a flash, he had already retreated 1,000 meters and roared furiously, "What are you all waiting for? Block her for me!" His voice was naturally directed at the 10 darkest stem Saint Apostles. At this moment, the 10 darkest stem Saint Apostles were no less shocked than Darkest Secret. Was this red-robed woman really a god? Her power was actually able to block the myriad thunder calamity realm. The huge tribulation clouds in the sky were clearly melting rapidly. According to Dark Tianji's estimation, the myriad thunder calamity realm of the Eastern Wood Empire, which should have spread to the coastal waters of the 5 Elements mainland, was actually gradually dispersing. Do it! Finally, Weaponly Yonghao shouted and slashed out with the dark sky demon sword in his hand with all his mana. The 10 great dark stem saints followed suit and attacked the small red lotus at the same time. The 10 great dark stem saints' exclusive divine weapons radiated brilliantly at this moment. Incomparably powerful mana converged into a 10-colored torrent in the sky that was actually targeted at that small red lotus. What is a divine weapon? Only a divine weapon that is in the hands of a god is a true divine weapon. The voice of the flaming bar was very calm. The small red lotus had already lightly and effortlessly collided with the 10-colored torrent released by the 10 great dark stem saints. The 10 great dark stem saints spat out 10 mouthfuls of blood at almost the same time. The divine weapons in their hands all emitted ear-piercing sounds of damage. Cracks had already appeared on the divine weapons, and each of them was severely injured. However, even so, the small red lotus did not disappear. It fluttered in the wind in the sky and turned into a string of red lotus petals that chased after Dark Tianji, who was fleeing rapidly. At this moment, the myriad thunder calamity realm in the sky suddenly shook violently. Countless huge balls of lightning that were more than 100 meters in diameter descended from the sky in place of the lightning. The calm expression of the flaming bar instantly turned solemn. She retracted her left hand that was originally pointed at Dark Tianji, and lowered her right hand that was above her head at the same time. She raised her arms from both sides of her body with her palms facing upwards. Instantly, a layer of red light surged from her and the red lotus. The moment this red light appeared, the entire ground seemed to have turned red. Strangely, this red color that should be the strongest fire attribute did not burn at all. Instead, it only gave Ji Dong and the others a feeling of warmth. Ah! A blood-curdling scream came from afar. Dark red blood scattered in all directions in the sky. 4 different colors of radiance flashed crazily before quickly converging. A layer of intense colorful radiance swept over, sweeping up the bodies of the 10 dark heavenly stem saints and rapidly escaping into the distance. In the end, Dark Tianji did not die. After all, he had fused with the magic of the 4 great sacred beasts. Moreover, the flaming bar was temporarily unable to deal with him in order to resist the final madness of the myriad thunder calamity realm. However, Dark Tianji was already scared out of his wits by the flaming bar. He did not even have the courage to look back. He brought the 10 great dark stem saints with him and flew away. He could no longer control the myriad thunder calamity realm. He could only let this ultimate technique die on its own. All he wanted now was to quickly return to the 5 Elements continent and find the most secluded place to hide. He did not want to see that woman in red ever again. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was that this perfect woman was the fire god. The red luster made the already perfect flaming bar look even more sacred and inviolable. Everyone, including the chrysanthemum Saint Pig, looked up at her figure. Except for Ji Dong, they only looked at the flaming bar with reverence. Among the people present, even Ji Dong and Ah Jin had never seen the flaming bar go all out. They had also imagined the strength of the flaming bar, but their imagination was far from enough. Was the flaming bar really a saint grade? If she was a saint grade like the chrysanthemum Saint Pig, why was the ultimate technique that even the chrysanthemum Saint Pig could not resist unable to wreak havoc in front of her? Boom! In an instant, the warm ground seemed to become an extension of the flaming bar's body. The red luster instantly rose from the whole ground, but it did not cause any harm to the people on the 5 Elements mainland. The warm feeling rushed into the sky at the same time, and the black tribulation cloud of the world of lightning calamity was completely illuminated. The thunderballs falling from the sky were purified in the red luster. When the dense red luster came into contact with the tribulation cloud, the whole world of lightning calamity finally began to melt. The red flame surrounded the body of the flaming bar, looking so transparent. On the body of the flaming bar, the red flame was like a living elf, gradually showing the shape of a red lotus, quietly flying around her body. Looking at this magical scene, everyone felt intoxicated. The enemy was defeated, even the world of lightning calamity gradually dispersed in the rising red luster. The sunlight that had not shone on the land of the holy evil island for thousands of years gradually appeared. Rays of golden sunlight penetrated the dark clouds and quietly scattered on the ground. The warmth and light brought new vitality to the land. Suddenly, Fury seemed to think of something. His expression changed greatly, and he said, "Oh no, I'll go first." His injuries had been healed by the chrysanthemum Saint Pig. He turned around and flew away. There was clearly a large amount of sweat on his forehead. The purple thunder brilliant sky dragon let out a low roar. It looked timidly at the flaming bar floating in the air, then it rose up and chased after Fury. Seeing Fury's movement, Ji-dong's heart also sank. They were protected by the chrysanthemum Saint Pig and the flaming bar, and finally got out of danger. But what about the Heavenly Stems Legion? What about Yi Xen, who was searching for the enemy on the holy evil island? None of them knew that he could completely understand how Fury felt at this moment. It was just like the panic and trembling in his heart when Raging Flame first appeared and bore the bombardment of the myriad Thunder Tribulation prison realm for them. The sunlight became more and more abundant. Finally, the dark clouds that had covered the island for 1,000 years completely dispersed. The feeling of transparency caused everyone to squint their eyes involuntarily. There were no plants or magical beasts on the holy evil island. It was just a bare island. Although the sea couldn't be seen because of its vastness, there was no real barrier between it and the eastern and western continents, just like 1,000 years ago. However, unlike 1,000 years ago, the holy evil island was like a bridge between the two continents. Both sides could land on the other's territory without a lot of sea transportation. Flaming bar. Ji-dong took a few steps forward excitedly. Looking at the goddess-like flaming bar in the sky, he didn't even know how he felt at this moment. The flaming bar looked down at Ji-dong. The sadness in her eyes seemed to be deeper, but she still gave him a gentle smile. Ji-dong was shocked. He suddenly found that he seemed to have seen the sadness in the eyes of the flaming bar somewhere. Ah, he remembered it. The sadness in the eyes of the flaming bar was exactly the same as the look in old Tianji's eyes when he died. A strong sense of foreboding began to spread in his heart. The flaming bar looked up at the sky again. Looking at the sun hanging in the sky like a golden disk, and then looking at the east where dark Tianji and the others retreated, a trace of hesitation appeared in her eyes. Ji-dong, I'm afraid there's not enough time. I can't help you to annihilate all the enemies on the Dark Continent. What I can do is to buy you 5 years. With 5 years of preparation, I think you should be able to cope with all the changes in the future. Chapter 3:15. As she spoke, Flaming Bar closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She didn't have human tears, but she really wanted to cry now. She had saved Ji-dong's life, but she also wanted to, Flaming Bar let out a cry to vent her emotions. Her voice was full of unwillingness and sadness. In an instant, the light of the sun in the sky suddenly dimmed. Then, the waves around the holy evil island froze instantly. The next moment, all the waves rose at the same time. Strong ripples shook the sea, and the corpses of magical beasts were rolled up in the sea. Impure water was conductive. There was no doubt that the sea could not be pure. There was no completely pure water in the world. The innumerable lightning calamity not only took away the lives of all the creatures on the sea, but also devoured all the magical beasts that had lived in the sea for thousands of years. Unfortunately, at this time, no one on the east sea coast of the radiant Five Elements continent could see this scene. Only the millions of heroes on the dark Five Elements continent could see the island that was no longer shrouded by the innumerable lightning calamity realm. In an instant it was like a ruby in the sea, suddenly shining. The golden color of the sun began to change, turning into a deep red. At the same time, a red moon appeared, the blood sun and blood moon. Flaming Bar, you are. Ji-dong stared at the flaming bar in the sky blankly. Flaming bar didn't answer him. She showed a trace of sadness on her face. She raised her hands on both sides of her body, and the natal red lotus under her feet flew out quietly towards the center of the Five-Saint Mountain, which was also the core of the entire Holy Evil Island. At the same time, Flaming Bar turned around and gently waved her hands. A thick warm red light swept Ji-dong and the others, as well as the chrysanthemum Holy Pig, and they all floated in the air. The red light swept over Ji-dong's body, and he flew to the front of Flaming Bar. They looked at each other. Looking at Ji-dong's Flaming Bar, she suddenly felt something slipping from her eyes. She was surprised to find that it was 2 drops of light red tears. Are these tears? Are they human tears? Her hands trembled as she caught the 2 drops of tears. Even in the face of the ultimate killer skill, she didn't show any change in expression. But when she saw the 2 drops of tears, her eyes were filled with disbelief. Flaming Bar. Ji-dong raised his hands, wanting to hug her, but his hands stopped in the air. He once again deeply felt the insurmountable gap between him and Flaming Bar. Did he really have the right to hug her? However, what Ji-dong didn't expect was that in front of so many people, Flaming Bar just leaned into his embrace. She hugged her waist tightly and buried her face in his chest. Flaming Bar's body was very hot, and it soothed Ji-dong's heart. Ji-dong could even feel her body trembling. Flaming Bar, are you not feeling well? Ji-dong asked worriedly. No. Flaming Bar choked and shook her head. She raised her head, and there was only endless gentleness and deep love in her eyes. Ji-dong, can you dance with me? Just like when we were in the Heavenly STEM Academy. Ji-dong was stunned. He didn't expect that Flaming Bar would make such a request at this time. However, how could he doubt any request from Flaming Bar? Okay. He held her hand and hugged her slender waist. He felt the perfect curve from her waist to her bottom. Ji-dong's gaze was instantly infatuated. His heart beat uncontrollably. It didn't matter where they were. So what if they couldn't have their feet on the ground? All that remained in his eyes was the Flaming Bar in his arms, which was emitting a red glow. Flaming Bar naturally placed her right hand on Ji-dong's shoulder. Her body trembled even more violently. Her face once again pressed tightly against Ji-dong's chest. Tightly pressed. Flaming Bar's slightly scorching breath carried the fragrance of orchids into Ji-dong's nose and filled his sense of smell. At the same time, she also felt Ji-dong's restless and passionate heart. A faint blush appeared on her white, jade-like face. At this moment, she was no longer a serene and noble red lotus. Instead, she was a fiery red rose in full bloom. It was as if she wanted to completely melt Ji-dong into her body. Ji-dong didn't know where the music came from. It was a beautiful melody that seemed to be playing in the air. It was exactly the same song that he and Flaming Bar danced to at the Heavenly STEM Academy's reunion ball. Amidst the music, Ji-dong stepped to the left. The hand that was wrapped around Flaming Bar's waist exerted a little force. Under his lead, Flaming Bar's body moved with him, as if she was weightless. With every step, Ji-dong could feel his feet on the ground. This sky filled with dense red light was the dance floor for him and Flaming Bar. Everyone else was completely stunned. They didn't understand why Ji-dong and Flaming Bar would dance at this time. However, their dance was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. Flaming Bar was very light and soft, but extremely hot. Even if his body and soul were to really melt, Ji-dong was willing. Ji-dong's dance was noble and elegant. Every movement was extremely exquisite. Flaming Bar's dance was light and graceful. Nestled in his arms, they coordinated perfectly under his lead. Pure love that came from the heart, spread in their hearts. Ji-dong's heart also gradually soared along with the dance, and the uneasiness in his heart seemed to gradually disappear along with the dance of his body. At this moment, he seemed to be able to deeply feel that Flaming Bar's heart was tightly attached to his own, and there was no longer any difference between them. Just as Ji-dong and Flaming Bar danced in the air, circles of red halos continuously spread out with their bodies as the center. The dense red light flew in the direction of the Five Saints Mountain. No one knew what the light represented. They could only see the red light and circles, but they couldn't feel any magical waves at all. After every circle of light floated into the air, it would turn into the shape of a huge lotus petal and float away. The terrifying power of the world of myriad lightning calamity had almost flattened the Five Saints Mountain. At this moment, at the center of the Five Saints Mountain, a dense red light lit up. The ground seemed to be boiling. With a loud bang, the Five Saints Mountain actually exploded. Huge golden red flames suddenly shot up from the ground and went straight into the air. Although the people on the Five Elements continent were covered by the red light released by the Flaming Bar and couldn't feel the terrible power of the instantaneous explosion, the scene in front of them still made them turn pale with fright. The five mountains exploded at the same time, releasing incomparably surging flames. Was this caused by the lotus that flew out from the Flaming Bar? However, what surprised them even more was that the huge rising golden flames were actually condensing in the air, and the red light petals that flew out from the Flaming Bar merged into the flames. The ground was shaking violently, and the evil island seemed to be moaning in pain in the terrible explosion. Only Ji-dong didn't pay attention to that horrible scene. His body and mind had been completely immersed in the dance with the Flaming Bar. Under the cover of the red light, he could only hear the melody of the dance, without any noise of the outside world. The golden red flames condensed into a huge red lotus at the original position of the Five Saints Mountain. The red lotus seemed to be more than a kilometer in diameter. As far as the eyes could see, all the light became distorted. The sun in the sky was like a dim egg yolk at this moment, while the 1,000-meter diameter red lotus became the core of the world. The dance music finally ended. The Flaming Bar took advantage of the opportunity to climb up Ji-dong's neck. She raised her head and looked at him with tender eyes, as if the terrible red lotus fire behind her had nothing to do with her and Ji-dong at all. "Ji-dong, kiss me," the Flaming Bar murmured softly. Ji-dong's heart trembled. How could he reject such a request? He lowered his head and their lips touched gently. He was afraid that his actions would harm the Flaming Bar in the slightest bit of roughness, so he kissed her lips gently. Her lips were warm and moist, and even trembled slightly. The Flaming Bar slowly closed her eyes, and her long eyelashes trembled slightly on her eyelids. Boom! A blinding red light finally exploded from the huge red lotus. Whether it was the ground or the sky, everything was dyed a brilliant red, and all of this red became the background of the kiss between Ji-dong and the Flaming Bar. Ji-dong suddenly felt a trace of salty taste in his mouth. He was shocked and woke up from the wonderful love. Their lips parted, and he saw 2 lines of light red tears on the Flaming Bar's face. Holding the Flaming Bar's delicate face, Ji-dong said in shock, "Flaming Bar, what's wrong with you?" Only then did he notice that the sky and the ground had turned into a strange red scene. His expression instantly became a little sluggish. The Flaming Bar shook her head gently, and the tears on her face fell on their own. She smiled at Ji-dong. "I'm fine, I'm just too happy." "Ji-dong, do you think this red is beautiful? This is the red that only belongs to us. The world of innumerable thunderbolts is my ultimate skill. Let me show you my ultimate skill." With a gentle struggle, roaring flame broke free from Ji-dong's embrace. She turned around gently and faced the direction where Five Saint Mountain had originally been. She looked at the magnificent red in the sky, as well as the huge 1,000-meter-wide red lotus. Her gaze was calm and gentle. Ji-dong only felt like his soul vortex had stopped spinning at that moment. In the next moment, he could vaguely see from the side that Roaring Flame's eyes were filled with a light as profound as outer space. Red lotus. The 2 simple words came out of the mouth of the Flaming Bar very slowly. Her gentle eyes became firm. She raised her hands slightly, and then gently dropped them down, making a light chopping gesture towards the two sides of the holy evil island. In the sky, the 1,000 meters long red lotus instantly rotated, and countless dazzling lights surged in the air. If the world of innumerable thunderbolts was the ultimate skill of thunder, then what was presented to Ji Dong and the people of the Five Elements continent was the ultimate skill of fire, which was completely superior to the world of innumerable thunderbolts. This is my ultimate skill. The world of innumerable thunderbolts has disappeared, but you need another barrier to block the enemy. I don't have time to destroy the enemy for you, and I don't want to kill more people. Let me set up another barrier for you. Two solid golden lights suddenly shot out of the eyes of the flaming bar, pointing at the center of the 1,000 meters long red lotus in the sky. When the golden lights and the red lotus touched each other, the earth shook violently. The air that had been distorted because of the blazing heat suddenly became normal, and everything in front of everyone became clear. All the red flew towards the huge red lotus. The red lotus was broken, and huge red lotus petals fluttered in the sky. Each petal stretched out in the air, as if it had a life of its own. The 1,000 meters long sky instantly expanded. The eyes of the flaming bar glittered with golden lights. The huge golden and red petals were arranged neatly in the air under her control. How many petals did a 1,000 meters long red lotus have? Apart from the flaming bar, no one knew. From afar, the golden petals formed an endless golden line in the sky. It looked like a golden bridge in the sky. It was strange and spectacular. The flaming bar chanted softly, with the red lotus as the guide, with the heaven and earth as the medium, with the stars and the moon as the sun, with me as the source of the earth's core, I open the door of the heavenly fire. Burn, my red lotus, turn into a sky of flames that can block everything. Nothing in the world can surpass it. With every word, the flaming bar's hands made a strange gesture in front of her chest. Ji Dong could clearly see a bright red symbol shining behind the flaming bar. When the next symbol appeared, it would replace the previous one. The golden line formed by the red lotus petals in the sky seemed to understand the flaming bar's voice. As the symbols appeared, the golden red light they emitted became more intense. Finally, when the last four words that could not be surmounted were uttered, the flaming bar smiled. She closed her eyes and looked up at the sky as if she was feeling the fluctuation of the fire attribute in the air. With a gentle and beautiful voice, she uttered the four words word by word. Red, lotus, heavenly, fire. Yes, this was the flaming bar's ultimate skill, red lotus heavenly fire. The dazzling light ignited all the passion of the golden petals in the singing of the red lotus heavenly fire. The golden red flame, starting from the golden line in the sky, burst out to the sky and the ground at the same time. In an instant, the brilliant flame had silently cut the evil island and the sea apart. The golden light was endless, with no end in sight. Chapter 3:16. The golden light spread across the sky and the earth. The center of the holy evil island was broken silently, without any sound. No one could even feel the vibration of the island. It was not broken, but cut open in an instant. The center of the island was burned by the heavenly fire of the red lotus. The amazing thing was that the golden red flame did not spread at all, nor did it release any fire attribute energy. It connected the sky and the earth, and completely separated the light and dark five elements continent. The holy evil island was still the same scorched earth. All the red had disappeared. They landed on the ground lightly. Apart from them, there were only the 7 radiant saint crystal crowns floating in the air, glowing with all kinds of attribute. Raging flames leaned against Ji Dong's chest. It was unknown when her natal red lotus had quietly flown back, supporting her and Ji Dong's body. Who would have thought that the magnificent curtain of heavenly fire not far in front of them was actually completed by this seemingly delicate and perfect woman? Everyone looked at raging flames with reverence in their eyes. They naturally understood what this curtain of heavenly fire meant. The dark 5 elements continent had endured for 1,000 years, and their goal was to destroy the Holy Evil Island and launch an all-out holy war against the radiant Five Elements continent. However, with this curtain of heavenly fire, coupled with the words ultimate killing technique, that raging flames had said, they understood that the plan of the Dark Five Elements continent had been ruined. It was impossible for them to break through this curtain of heavenly fire and launch an attack on the radiant Five Elements continent. Even if this curtain of light could only last for a period of time, it was enough time for the radiant Five Elements continent, and during this period of time, it could be said to have saved the entire continent. Raging Flames, relying on her own strength, had avoided this calamity for the Five Elements continent, and had even saved their lives. Even though she had only appeared for Ji-dong, everyone present was still filled with gratitude towards her. Raging Flame calmly looked at the crowd below and said, "My heavenly fire red lotus barrier, even the darkness of heaven, who has fused with the magic power of the four great holy beasts, is unable to break through. Even without the support of my magic power, it will not disappear within 5 years. 5 years should be enough for you and the humans on the Five Elements continent to react. You are all Ji-dong's friends and partners. I hope you can help him more in the future. Thank you." As she spoke, she slightly bowed to the crowd in the air. It was a salute. Ji-dong didn't understand why Flaming Bar did this. He was stunned. The crowd hurriedly bowed back. How could they accept the courtesy of their savior? Flaming Bar's gaze fell on Ah Jin. She said, "Ah Jin, please help Ji-dong take care of the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon and Eclipse Phoenix. I will take Ji-dong back to the Earth's core lake. Take good care of yourself. When Ji-dong returns, help me take care of him." Ah Jin looked at the Flaming Bar in a daze and said, "Yes, master." Flaming Bar's hand gently brushed past Ji-dong's right wrist. Ji-dong's vermilion bird bracelet was already in her hand. It turned into a red light and flew to Ah Jin. Ah Jin took the bracelet. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon beside her roared unwillingly. Flaming Bar smiled and said, "Moutai Wulyangya. You have to be obedient." "Flaming Bar, you?" Ji-dong asked in confusion. Everything had been settled. Even though the Flaming Bar's strength had far exceeded his expectations, the enemy had retreated. So why did Flaming Bar want Ah Jin to help him take care of Flame and the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon? Flaming Bar looked gently at Hyoheim and said, "Let's go. Let's go home. To me, the Earth's core lake is my home. It is also your home. I know you must have many questions in your heart. This time, I will tell you all of them." Under everyone's gaze, the red lotus beneath the Flaming Bar and Ji-dong's feet glowed. Red lotus petals gently enveloped their bodies. When the Flaming Bar's natal red lotus had completely closed into a bud, there was a flash of light. The huge bud had already sunk into the ground and disappeared. All that was left was the light screen of the red lotus heavenly fire that had saved the light of the Five Elements mainland. Yun Tianji's eyes had already regained the light of wisdom. He murmured, "Master, I understand. I understand what you are saying. Master, no matter what happens, you must hold on." Yao Qianshu said in a low voice, "Let's go. We need to search for the others quickly. The myriad lightning calamity realm is wreaking havoc. I wonder if there are any survivors from the Heavenly Stem's army." When she heard this, Lon Bauer's eyes reddened. Among everyone present, she was the only one who truly belonged to the Heavenly Stem's army. She finally remembered why Fury had suddenly left. Such a powerful ultimate technique, perhaps. The light screen of the Red Lotus heavenly fire blocked the enemy for them. However, everyone's hearts grew heavier. At this moment, these young people seemed to have grown up a lot. They all understood that a heavy responsibility had been placed on their shoulders. Yun Tianji walked out and took the 7 crystal crowns that were floating in the air into his palm. "Master's lover has fought for us for 5 years. These 5 years are also 5 years that will determine the survival of the continent. It is fate that you are able to appear here. Master and the Thunder Emperor are not here, so I will represent them to give these crystal crowns to each of you. You are the true saints of the 5 elements continent. However, there is one thing I must tell you in advance. If you want to absorb the energy in the crystal crowns, you will need to endure inhuman pain. If you cannot endure it, the result will be death. I will give you time to think about it. If you want to withdraw, you will not be forced. Everyone looked at each other. Before they could speak, Ajin had already walked in front of Meow Meow. He extended his right hand and said, "Give me the core of life." Meow Meow silently took the core of life and put it in Ajin's hand. Ajin took the core of life and turned to Yuntianji. "I am ultimate in gold. I don't need this crystal crown. I will leave first and wait for Master and Jidong to come back." Yun Tianji said, "No, Miss Ajin, this ultimate in gold crystal crown should still belong to you. In this world, it's impossible for there to be 2 holy disciples. Your appearance doesn't conform to the will of the heavens. Taking this crystal crown won't just increase your strength, it'll also change your destiny. At the same time, you're the only one who won't have any side effects after taking this crystal crown." As he spoke, Yun Tianji handed a crystal crown that looked like it was carved out of gold crystal to Ajin. Ajin took it and looked at Yun Tianji. She suddenly asked, "Since you are a prophet, tell me, will Master be okay?" Yun Tianji paused. "I can see Master's sorrow, but I can't see the result. However, nothing is completely hopeless. There is still hope. Just like how your master was able to appear in time to save us." Ajin was silent for a while before she nodded. "Okay, I understand." After saying that, she floated up and landed on the back of the sacred evolution fire dragon. Maotai and Wulyangye roared at the same time and rose into the sky, flying into the distance. After Ajin left, the remaining people's gazes fell on the crystal crown in Yuntianji's hand. They all understood what these crystal crowns signified. Not only was it a powerful strength that came with possessing ultimate mana, but it was also a responsibility that came with possessing ultimate mana. Yun Tianji stood there calmly, but he could not calm down at all. He was worried. He was not worried about the crystal crown of the Saints of Light in his hand, but he was worried about Jidong. He was deeply worried. This was because the moment before Jidong and the flaming bar left, he suddenly saw something in his heart. Even though he could not be sure what the final outcome would be, he knew that after Jidong and the flaming bar left, he would face the most important turning point in his life. He would also face the most important test in his life, even more so than when he faced the darkness Tianji and the darkness heavenly stem saint. No one would have thought that the first person to walk out of the crowd would be Lan Bao. She silently walked in front of Yun Tianji. There was a determined look in her eyes. She said, "Tianji, hello?" Yun Tianji came back to his senses. He nodded at her and said, "Have you thought it through?" A faint smile appeared on Lan Bao's face. It made her beautiful face look even more beautiful. She said, "Yes, I have thought it through. I have always loved someone in my heart. I always thought that I would have some chance. However, just now, when I saw his true love block the ultimate killing technique for him, I knew that his heart would never be able to contain me again. We are not fated in this life. I can only place my love and responsibility. My name is Lan Bao. I am willing to bear the responsibility of the Light Water Saint." Yun Tianji took out the shining crystal crown and handed it to Lan Bao. Lan Bao received it carefully with both hands. Her eyes were filled with determination as she looked at the crystal crown in her hand. Du Ming and Du Xian also walked out. The 2 siblings came in front of Yun Tianji. Du Ming said in a low voice, "I am willing to help teacher defend the light. As a member of the 5 Elements continent, I have the responsibility to protect my home. Even if the price is my life, I am willing to bear the responsibility of the Light Water Saint." Du Xian blinked her eyes and said, "I don't know what to say, but I will not retreat. The Light Metal Saint sounds quite imposing. I can do what Big Brother said. I will also help Big Brother Jidong." Fate Yun smiled. He took out the radiant 9th water crystal crown and the radiant 7th gold crystal crown and placed them in front of the siblings. They each pressed their own crystal crown. The siblings looked at each other and smiled. They understood that their fates had changed at this moment. They would no longer be protected by the halo of their father, the wine god. Out of the 7 crystal crowns, 4 had already been used. There were only 2 earth crystal crowns and 1 wood crystal crown left in Yun Tianji's hands. Among the people present, apart from Yun Tianji himself, the only one who did not possess ultimate demonic power was the leader of the Demon Alliance, Misty Miao. Yun Tianji's sunlight fell on Miao Miao. He saw her hesitant eyes. "What? Are you not willing, Miss Miao Miao?" Yun Tianji asked loudly. Miao Miao looked at him in surprise and said, Can I really do it? You should know that I am from the Demon Alliance. Du Xian was captured by me before. You should know what the Demon Alliance means to the orthodox demon masters." Yun Tianji shook his head. "No, I don't know what the Demon Alliance means. I only know that you are my master's comrade and our partner. When you joined this battle with the Thunder Emperor and my master, even though you knew that the future was full of danger, I already saw you as a partner. Your identity is not important. I think that you have the ability and the obligation to bear the responsibility of this light earth crystal crown. From now on, you should add the title of Holy Disciple of Light to your name." Miao Miao's eyes were a little blurred. A faint watery light filled her eyes. For so many years, the Demon Alliance had always been a heresy in the eyes of the orthodox demon masters. She never thought that at this moment she would be truly recognized. Even though this recognition came from the mouth of a person, it was enough for her. Miao Miao floated up and landed in front of Yun Tianji. When she took the light earth crystal crown, her hands were clearly trembling. "Tianji, thank you." Yun Tianji shook his head with a smile and said, "No, you shouldn't thank me, because what you have received is a heavy responsibility. I still have the light earth crystal crown and the light earth crystal crown in my hands. I will leave these 2 crystal crowns for my master to decide when he returns. There is one thing I must tell you. In this generation of heavenly disciples, our holy king is the light yin-yang double fire saint, Jidong. However, there are still 10 of you. This is because among the light saints, there is also the light yang thunder saint, Fury, who possesses the ultimate yang thunder. You are the true heavenly disciples of light, heavenly disciples. Your responsibility is to lead the light to defeat the darkness." Yes, they were the true heavenly disciples of light, heavenly disciples of this generation. According to the order of the 5 elements, they were: Radiant First Wood Holy Disciple Yao Qianshu, Radiant Second Wood Holy Disciple Kong, Radiant Yin-Yang Dual Fire Holy Disciple Jidong, Radiant Yang Lightning Holy Disciple Fury, Radiant Fifth Earth Holy Disciple Kong, Radiant Sixth Earth Holy Disciple Miao Miao, Radiant Seventh Metal Holy Disciple Du Xen, Radiant Seventh Metal Holy Disciple Ah Jin, Radiant Ninth Water Holy Disciple Du Ming, and Radiant 10th Water Holy Disciple Lan Bao. They would truly become the generation of saints who would lead the light to defeat the darkness. When they truly merged with the crystal crowns in their hands, they would shoulder the responsibility of leading the 5 elements continent of light to fight the 5 elements continent of darkness to the death 5 years later. Chapter 3:17. Earth's Core Lake. The faint red light quietly spread. The soft petals slowly opened, revealing the 2 people wrapped inside. The Earth's core tide was still the original Earth's core lake. There were no changes. The thick magma would occasionally bubble. The scorching air filled with fire elements made Jidong, as a fire magician, feel extremely comfortable. He and the flaming bar had returned, just like what the flaming bar had said, they had returned home. The flaming bar didn't put away her life red lotus. She lightly pressed on Jidong's shoulder and said, "Jidong, sit down." Jidong did as he was told. He sat down on the flaming bar's lotus seat in the center of the red lotus. To his surprise, as he sat down, the flaming bar also sat down, and directly sat on his lap. her arms wrapped around his neck, her whole body nestled in his embrace. "Flaming Bar, what's wrong with you? Is it because you've used too much magic, making your body uncomfortable?" Ji Dong asked with concern. The Flaming Bar had never been so attached to him. The softest part of his heart was constantly touched by the Flaming Bar, but he was very clear. The Flaming Bar could release the ultimate killer move. How could she really be weak? The Flaming Bar shook her head lightly in Ji Dong's embrace, but she didn't raise her head. She only leaned on Ji Dong's broad chest in the most comfortable position, and said, "Ji Dong, you've always wanted to know what kind of power I have, and even more so, why did I tell you that I can't release my power in the human world, right?" Ji Dong's gaze gradually became gentle. He hugged the Flaming Bar tightly in his arms, felt the heat of her body and said, "No, these are not important. I've never asked you, have I? I respect all your secrets, and I've never suspected you of anything." The Flaming Bar was almost murmuring, "But I want to tell you everything now. I'll tell you everything about me. When exactly did I appear in this world? Even I don't know, because when I was just born, I didn't have any consciousness at all. It was the hottest magma in the Earth's core lake that nourished an unknown rock, and thus gave birth to a Earth's core red lotus. I quietly soaked in the Earth's core lava for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. I don't know when, but I finally gained consciousness. I even started to actively absorb the fire elements in the Earth's core lake, but this process was far, far away from the cultivation speed of you humans. After an unknown amount of time, my soul began to gradually strengthen, which was equivalent to a human's soul, and I gradually became able to sense everything in the outside world. I discovered that the world I lived in was actually so mysterious. There were 18 levels in the Earth's core lake, and each level had different creatures. As my soul became stronger, I could sense more and more things, until my soul could penetrate the 18 levels of the Earth's core lake and sense the human world outside. Only then did I understand that this world wasn't actually quiet, but it was so colorful. Do you still remember? I once told you that I had traveled in the human world, but in reality, that was only my soul reverberating in the human world. I really admired you humans for being able to withstand the warmth of the sun, to have such unique talents and to communicate with each other. Perhaps it was from that moment onwards that my soul could no longer remain calm. Time passed day by day, and my soul continued to continuously strengthen. I tried my best to restrain my yearning for the outside world, because I knew that it didn't belong to me. Through my understanding of the Earth's core lake and my observation of the human world, I learned many truths, and understood many truths of heaven and earth. I also knew that I shouldn't exist in this world. I was afraid that my soul would be discovered by others, and I would fall into eternal damnation. So, I escaped back here, and quietly absorbed every bit of fire elements in the Earth's core lake, and did my best to strengthen myself. Only in this way could I have a sense of security. The voice of the Flaming Bar was still as pleasant as ever, but at this moment, there was a strange change in her voice. It sounded like she was weeping and complaining, and Ji Dong's heartstrings moved along with her voice. Until one day, the unrest in the Earth's core world woke me up from my silent cultivation. When I released my soul again, I was shocked to find that the 18th level of the Earth's core world was in complete chaos. There were battles everywhere, and countless creatures were killed or injured. The entire 18th level of the Earth's core world was in complete chaos. I didn't understand what was going on, but for the first time I felt angry. This was my home, and someone was destroying my home. How could I not be angry? So, my soul began to search for the cause of the war. Very soon, I found out that this war was caused by the two rulers of the Earth's core world fighting for the right to rule the Earth's core world. So, I took action for the first time in my life. Even I didn't expect that I would become so powerful at that time. I comprehended the true meaning of fire, and possessed the most fundamental power of fire. I killed the two rulers, and used my soul to intimidate the entire Earth's core world. Finally, peace was restored, and I inherited the two rulers' ruling position. I became the queen of the Earth's core world. I gave myself a name, the Flaming Bar. Hearing this, Ji-dong was a little dazed. He couldn't imagine how the Flaming Bar spent thousands of years in loneliness. Loneliness was sometimes more terrifying than death. The Earth's core world was peaceful, but my heart couldn't. Before the Flame Tyrant and the Dark Flaming Devil King died, they told me that no matter if it was them or me, we couldn't see the light of day. Because we were born from the Earth's core fire, we weren't created by God. If we were to use human language to describe us, then we should be abyssal demons. After all, their strength after awakening was not enough to violate the bottom line of the gods. However, they told me that I was different, because when I attacked them, I already had a reason to make the gods fear me. Because at that time I was already a god. Even though Ji-dong had already guessed it, when the Flaming Bar personally said that she was already a god, he couldn't help but be shocked. All this while, the Flaming Bar had been a goddess in his heart, a perfect goddess. He never thought that she would actually be a god. The Flaming Bar seemed to have seen through Ji-dong's thoughts. She lifted her head and looked at him with a gentle gaze. She said, "Actually, I'm not a god. I merely possess the same strength as a god. Only you humans can truly become a god, but we can't. We can only be abyssal demons. Once the heavenly gods knew of my existence, there would only be one ending for me, and that was to be destroyed. From that moment onwards, I didn't dare to go to the surface, not even with my spiritual sense. I didn't want to be destroyed. I treasured this hard-earned life and wisdom. Even if the core was lonely, I was still alive." As he listened to the Flaming Bar's words, Ji-dong's vision became a little blurry. His arm, which was holding onto the Flaming Bar, began to tremble slightly. Only now did he understand how much risk the Flaming Bar had taken to travel the mainland with him. Everything she had done had been for his sake. Suddenly, he seemed to realize something, and his heart instantly tightened. He said, "Raging flames, then you just used your own power outside you." The Flaming Bar sat up straight. She gently shifted her position on Ji-dong's lap so that she was closer to Ji-dong. She said, "Ji-dong, don't interrupt me, all right? Let me finish what I have to say." Ji-dong held onto the Flaming Bar's red dress tightly. He hugged her and rested his chin on her shoulder. He was afraid. He was afraid that the Flaming Bar would leave him in the next moment. An unprecedented fear had already filled every corner of his heart. The Flaming Bar continued, "Time passed day by day. You know that there's actually no concept of heaven in our Earth's core. There's no day or night here. There's only life and death. I've already gotten used to this kind of loneliness. I don't know what will happen to me in the future. Everything in the Earth's core world is within my perception. I'm starting to feel a little lost. I suddenly realized that I don't understand what's the point of living in peace like this." It was also at this moment that a weak spatial ripple suddenly entered the Earth's core lake. It entered my spiritual sense. A human child who I thought was even weaker than the weakest creature in the Earth's core came here. He was holding a glass of wine in his hand. He brought with him a wine fragrance that I've never smelled before. "That's me." Ji-dong's voice trembled as he spoke. The Flaming Bar smiled and said, "That's right, that's you. I can still clearly remember how you looked when you first came here. You looked at me in a daze. Originally, I should have destroyed you. However, perhaps I was too lonely at that time, or perhaps I was really attracted by that glass of wine of yours. I couldn't help but talk to you. It was also from that moment onwards that my life changed. Every day I would taste the wine that you made for me. That feeling made me understand what you humans mean by happiness. Furthermore, what surprised me even more was that the wine you made always contained a special kind of emotion. To be able to integrate emotions into the liquid was something that even I couldn't do. I was a god. Hence, for a long time, I searched for what this emotion was. My soul consciousness once again secretly went to the human world. After continuous investigation, I finally understood that this emotion is called love. It's the love that only appears between a man and a woman. I started to pity you. The emotion that you brought me started to make me afraid. I was afraid that I would be destroyed because we were not creatures of the same world. It was impossible for me to accept your love. Therefore, I chose to escape. I didn't dare to see you for a long time, but the more I did that, the stronger my longing for you became. Moreover, in my soul sense, more and more of the same emotions as you humans began to appear. One day, when I saw that you were in danger and almost died, I suddenly realized that I was escaping. I had always been escaping. Doing so would only make me more miserable. At the same time, I also understood that the reason why I gradually developed human emotions was not because I was going to be destroyed, but because I was evolving. My soul sense and my strength were evolving along with the change of these emotions. Zhao Yu's expression became serious. That's right. I've always been escaping. Doing so would only make me more miserable. At the same time, I also understood that the reason why I gradually developed human emotions was not because I was going to be destroyed, but because I was evolving. My soul sense and my strength were evolving along with the change of these emotions. Therefore, I decided not to escape anymore. I wanted to see what kind of change you could make me. However, what I didn't expect was that as time passed, I actually developed all kinds of emotions like a human being. Moreover, I finally fell into your fiery emotions. I was born in the magma of the Earth's core, so I never knew what heat was, but your love made me feel heat, a warmth that came from the bottom of my heart. I realized that Ji is getting more and more inseparable from you, and accompanying you on your travels across the continent is the happiest period of my life. Do you still remember the last time I suddenly went into closed-door training? That was because I had finally completed a qualitative evolution once again. If it was said that when I defeated the two sovereigns, my strength was only equivalent to that of the lowest level of God, then after this evolution, I already possess the strength of a second-level god. The staff of Goddess of Earth that the girl called Miao Miao wields belongs to the second-level god of Goddess of Earth. Therefore, I was able to help you resist the ultimate killing technique just now. Although the world of infinite thunder purgatory has entered the category of ultimate killing techniques, it is after all not released by God. Super ultimate killing techniques belong to the saint level, while ultimate killing techniques belong to God. Ji Dong, do you know why I never dared to truly accept your love and say those 3 words to you? The gentleness in Flaming Bar's eyes finally began to change. A faint sadness flickered in his eyes. Why? Ji Dong blurted out. Flaming Bar said, because I'm not human. I don't have a human body. The me that you see is completely formed by energy. I can use energy to imitate the appearance of you humans, and even the touch of a physical body. However, I'm not human after all. I can't bear children for you like a human girl. How can I accept your love like this? I don't want you to fall in love with a mass of energy, or this perfect body that I created myself. No, Flaming Bar, no, you're right. When I first met you, I did fall in love with your perfect appearance. However, what I love now is your entire being. Even if you don't have a body and only your soul exists, I will still love you, and I will never regret it. Chapter 3:18. Looking at the Flaming Bar, Ji Dong's eyes were filled with love. He said, actually, I already knew that you weren't human. You also told me that you were evolved from a red lotus. But, when did I ever care? So what if I'm human? So what if it's energy? Don't tell me that this human skin isn't formed from energy? Raging flames, I love you, no matter what you become, no matter what you are, I will still love you. You have told me all your secrets, so I will also tell you a secret that belongs to me. Actually, I am also not a person of this world, my soul comes from another world, and the Ji Dong you see is just a body with a soul from another world. In my previous life, I was in a place different from the Five Elements continent, where there were also humans. At that time, I was the god of wine, the most outstanding bartender in that world, and when I tasted the 1,000-year-old wine, I fell asleep, and when I woke up, I already had this body. The original Ji-dong's soul had long since dissipated and died, and it was my transmigrated soul that occupied his body. The flaming bar stared blankly at Ji-dong. She never thought that Ji-dong would give her such a huge surprise. He pulled up the flaming bar's hands and placed them on his chest. He said, "Flaming bar, all I can tell you is that no matter if it's in my previous life or this one, I've only loved one woman, and that's you, my flaming bar. I know that I have a stubborn personality. Everything I'm stubborn about will never change. No matter what you're going to face, be it humans or gods, let me face it with you. I only have one request, let me die a second before you do." Hearing Ji-dong's words, the flaming bar's gaze suddenly calmed down and said, "No, Ji-dong, I still can't believe your love. You've been hiding this secret from me all this time. How can I believe you?" Ji-dong smiled bitterly. "It's not that I don't want to tell you, but it's too shocking. Moreover, I'm really afraid. I'm afraid that you'll leave me. So, even if there's the slightest possibility that it might threaten your feelings for me, I'm not willing to take the risk. Flaming bar, what do I have to do for you to believe me?" The flaming bar smiled. Her smile was very gentle. "If you can make 10 cocktails for me using the 10 most famous wines on the famous wines record, I will believe you." Ji-dong was stunned. He did not expect the flaming bar to make such a request. Looking at him, the flaming bar's heart trembled slightly. "Ji-dong, why wouldn't I believe you? Do you know that in my heart, you're not only my love, you're my everything? I only hope that you can live on and live well. How can I let you die with me? Did you know that when I had the courage to rush to the holy evil island and block the hell-thunder tribulation for you, I finally understood the true meaning of love. When I saw your life as more important than my own, I was already hopelessly in love with you. No matter what, I won't let you die." At this moment the entire core suddenly trembled. The flaming bar's expression froze. Before Ji-dong could answer her, she had already turned into a red light and slipped out of Ji-dong's arms. Ji-dong only felt a dense wave of warm mana enveloping his body. In the next moment, he was sent to the cave wall in the distance. Just like the first time he came to the core, his entire body was sealed by the red light. What's going on? Ji-dong's heart skipped a beat. When he wanted to react, he was blocked by the red light in front of him. Although his abilities were considered outstanding among the human magicians, he was still too weak in front of a second-level god like the flaming bar. How could he break through the barrier that the flaming bar had set up with his power? Although he could not go out, Ji-dong could see everything that was happening outside. He saw that the flaming bar's body was already floating in mid-air. She was standing on the natal red lotus, and a huge red lotus shadow had appeared behind her. Ji-dong's soul was connected to the flaming bar, so he could clearly sense that the flaming bar was in a highly tense state. There were even hints of fear and panic. This was the first time he had seen such emotions from the flaming bar. Even when the flaming bar was facing the ultimate killing technique, she had not been in such a state. Before Ji-dong could think further, a golden pillar of light suddenly descended from the sky without warning. Although there was no sky in the core world, when the golden pillar of light descended from the sky, Ji-dong felt as if it had pierced through the heavens. The deep golden light was filled with a holy aura. A person who looked like a middle-aged man descended from the golden light just like that. Seeing the appearance of this person, the flaming bar's expression immediately became even more tense. A layer of faint red light had already risen from her body, as if she was about to unleash her ultimate killing technique, the Red Lotus Heavenly Fire. This person was extremely handsome. He was tall and wore a set of golden armor. He looked about the same as Fury, the Thunder Emperor. The golden armor that was extremely fitting shone with a faint, strange demonic pattern. 2 pairs of similarly huge golden wings spread open on his back, and his entire body gave off an indescribable sense of power. The moment he appeared, the scorching hot world of the core lake suddenly became ice-cold. The core of the core lake trembled because of this person's arrival, as if the magma in the core lake was about to solidify at any time. Ji Dong could feel that it was not a change in temperature, but a pressure that was purely released from his mind. The chilly aura caused the originally dark red world to have an additional layer of white. The white was completely condensed from an ice-cold killing intent. How strong was the concentration of killing intent required for such a substantial form to appear? On the simple and unadorned face was a pair of blue eyes. There was not a single ripple of life in his eyes, only an eerie coldness. He stared coldly at the flaming bar, as if he was looking at a lamb that was waiting to be slaughtered. I am the enforcer of the Azura of the God realm, the God of slaughter Shupness. Evil creature, surrender immediately and follow me back to the God realm for the decision of the committee. The flaming bar's body slowly floated backwards in the air. There was an obvious look of fear in her eyes as she said, "Greetings, Lord Shupness. May I know what crime I have committed for you to want to take me back to the God realm?" Flaming Bar had been a god for a long time, so she knew a bit about the God realm. When she heard the other party's introduction, her heart sank. She had originally held on to some hope. If the other party was an ordinary god, she might have had a chance. However, when she heard that the other party was a god of slaughter, she no longer had any hope of getting lucky. After becoming a god, her spiritual sense had already transformed into divine sense. She could sense everything that was happening in the God realm. In the God realm, there were 3 great enforcers. Among them, the strictest and strongest was the Azura god. Even the god-kings of the God realm had to be wary of the Azura god. This showed how tyrannical he was. The god of slaughter Shupness was the #1 expert under the Azura god and the #1 assassin. No god had ever been able to escape from his hands. Even though the god of slaughter was also a second-tier god, his innate slaughter attribute could be said to be the bane of all gods. With the Azura god as his backer, he could even talk to some overgods as equals. Flaming Bar never thought that the god realm would place such importance on her to the point of sending the god of slaughter. 2 rays of golden light shot out from Shupness' eyes as he stared at Flaming Bar. The intense divine light seemed to pierce through Flaming Bar's divine sense. He said, "What crime have you committed? The very existence of you, evil creature of the abyss, is a sin. You should not even exist in this world. However, you have been hiding here and have never revealed your deity-level cultivation, which is why the immortal realm has not discovered you. This time, you actually dared to rashly affect the development of the human world, and even leaked your power. How can we allow you to continue existing? The God Realms Committee will make a fair judgment based on the severity of your crimes. Surrender immediately and follow me back to the God Realm. Otherwise, I will kill you without mercy." Flaming Bar sighed and turned to look at Ji Dong, who was sealed in a depression in the cave wall. Ji Dong saw the determination in her eyes. "No, Flaming Bar, no." Ji Dong screamed frantically. However, his voice couldn't pass through Flaming Bar's seal. At this moment, the fear in his heart had reached its limit. This was all because of him. If it wasn't to save him, Flaming Bar wouldn't have exposed her God Realm cultivation and been discovered by the God Realm. They even sent this god of death to capture her. It was obvious that if Flaming Bar returned to the God Realm with this god of death, she wouldn't have a good ending. However, what could he do now? With his strength, how could he affect the negotiations between the gods? Flaming Bar's beautiful face revealed a sad smile. She turned to Shupness again and said, "Lord God of Death, he's just a human. If I remember correctly, although the God Realm's enforcers are strong, they can only enforce the law against the gods. If I die, please don't hurt him. His existence concerns the fate of the humans in this world. He might even become a member of the god realm in the near future. Shupness snorted coldly and said, Do I need you to teach me how to do things? Vile creature, hurry up and come with me. If it was a minor god that he had enforced the law against in the past, Shupness wouldn't have wasted so much time talking. This time, he had personally come because of Flaming Bar's strength. When the god realm discovered that a level 2 god had appeared in the 5 Elements continent, they were greatly shocked. Fortunately, the god realm's committee hadn't been alerted yet. As one of the most powerful enforcers, Shupness had personally come. The appearance of a level 2 abyssal god in the human world was a huge mistake on the part of the enforcers. Only by bringing her back before the 2 god kings and 3 god enforcers of the god realm's committee discovered her would they be able to reduce their punishment. That was why Shupness had rushed over as fast as he could. Although he was powerful, Flaming Bar was also a level 2 god like him. If he could avoid trouble, he naturally wouldn't waste his energy. However, at this moment, Flaming Bar's gaze suddenly became resolute. Her fear was swept away in an instant and was replaced by determination and calmness. She said, No, I can't go with you. Even if I die, I want to die in this birthplace. What did you say? You dare to disobey the orders of the god realm? Shupness looked at the seemingly delicate woman before him with disbelief in his eyes. When he had first appeared, the abyssal goddess had clearly been extremely fearful, and that was definitely not an act. Any god below the level of an overgod would react in this manner upon seeing him, and Shupness was already used to this. However, at this moment, he discovered that not only had Flaming Bar's fear of him completely disappeared, she had also become more resolute. Her divine sense and divine power were also surging violently, and it was clear that she was going to attack him at any moment. There were very few gods below the level of an overgod who dared to act in such a manner in the face of his godslayer's might, but he had never thought that this abyssal goddess would be so courageous. Flaming Bar smiled bitterly and said, What difference does it make if I go back with you or not? It's just as you said, I'm an existence that shouldn't have existed. If I go to the god realm, the god realm governing council's verdict will be that my body and soul will be destroyed. Since that's the case, what difference does it make if I die at your hands or if I die at the hands of the god realm governing council? Let me experience just how powerful the illustrious godslayer of the god realm is. There was only one reason why Flaming Bar had chosen to fight to the death rather than return to the god realm. She hoped that she would be able to do something for Ji Dong before she died. A battle between gods would undoubtedly be a great inspiration for Ji Dong's cultivation. Furthermore, the battle where she died would be deeply engraved in the depths of his soul. In the future, when he really tried to break through to that level, it would definitely be of great help to him. This was also the last thing she could do for him. If she wasn't even afraid of death, then why would Flaming Bar be afraid of the Godslayer? Hearing Flaming Bar's words, Shupness' eyes flashed with a golden light, and his eyes turned completely white. As the God Realm Enforcer, almost all the gods who dared to challenge his authority were dead. Since you want to be destroyed in body and soul, then I'll grant you your wish. An intense murderous intent rose from Shupness' body, and the magnificent patterns on his golden armor instantly erupted with intense white light. The terrifying murderous intent instantly spread to every corner of the Earth's core lake, suppressing Flaming Bar so much that her face turned pale. Raging Flame's arms slowly rose from the sides of her body, and the red lotus beneath her feet suddenly blossomed with a rich red luster. The magma lake that had been completely suppressed by the killing god Shupness sensed the red luster emitted from her body, and suddenly a halo rose. With a loud bang, it was like a wave rolling up. The huge amount of fire element contained in the scorching magma seemed to have been completely mobilized by raging flame at this moment, and forcibly withstood the pressure of the killing god. Chapter 319. It had only been a short time since Raging Flames had evolved into a level 2 god, and she had just comprehended the power that a level 2 god could possess. On the other hand, the god of slaughter, Shupnus, had been a level 2 god for who knows how many years, and he had countless experience in battles between gods. As a law enforcer of the god realm, his strength could definitely be ranked in the top 3 among all the level 2 gods in the god realm. It could be said that Raging Flames would not have stood a chance against him. However, there were 2 aspects that Flaming Bar couldn't compare to Shupnus. One was her determination to die. She didn't think that she had any hope of surviving the pursuit of the divine realm. Even if a person knew that they were going to die, they would still be able to explode with immense power, let alone a god. The other aspect was that this was the Earth's core lake, the enemy that gave birth to her and raised her. All of her power came from the Earth's core lake, and a god's power couldn't be limitless. Using the Earth's core lake as a battlefield had a huge effect on Flaming Bar's own power. Moreover, she was familiar with the Earth's core lake like she was familiar with her own body. It was precisely because of these 2 conditions that the battle between Flaming Bar and Shupnus wouldn't be completely one-sided. Shupnus moved, and his completely white eyes suddenly burst forth with an incomparably powerful killing intent. Of course, he could tell that Flaming Bar was borrowing the power of the Earth's core lake. How could he give Flaming Bar enough time to accumulate power? In a flash, Shupnus seemed to have moved a meter in the air. Ji Dong, who was on the cave wall in the distance, couldn't see how he moved at all. Thousands of white lights shot towards Flaming Bar. At this moment, Ji Dong suddenly felt a jolt in his heart. His soul had already connected with Flaming Bar's divine sense, just like how he had used his spiritual force to help his companions in battle. However, the situation was the opposite this time. Flaming Bar had used her divine sense to connect with his power. Although Ji Dong couldn't see clearly with his eyes, he could clearly sense the fluctuations of Flaming Bar's divine sense in his soul. Those thousands of white lights were actually the killing god Shupnus' fist. In other words, he had already thrown thousands of punches in that instant. Furthermore, every punch he threw carried a strange power. The area covered by those thousands of punches clearly formed a mysterious formation, completely restricting Flaming Bar's body and preventing her from dodging. From the killing god Shupnus' fist intent, Ji Dong truly felt what a destructive killing intent was. He clearly knew that if it were him, a single thought from the killing god would be enough to kill him thousands of times. The gap between a human and a god couldn't be calculated with logic. It was also at this time that Flaming Bar moved. Facing the killing god's attack, she displayed extreme calmness. She pinched her hands into the shape of an orchid. In Ji Dong's soul perception, it seemed as if Flaming Bar's fingers had already flicked thousands of times. Following that, thousands of lava pillars shot out from the geocentric lake, all of which met the killing god's attack head-on. At the same time, every time Flaming Bar flicked her fingers, a small red lotus would surge out from her fingertips to meet the attack head-on. Ji Dong had seen such a red lotus before. On the Holy Evil Island, Flaming Bar had relied on such a small red lotus to almost make dark divination, who had already absorbed the mana of the 4 holy beasts, suffer a grievance. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the energy contained within the red lotus was. Facing the killing god, thousands of red lotuses shot out from the Flaming Bar at the same time. Just imagining the mana output made Ji Dong's heart beat violently. This was a true confrontation between gods. There was no chance of a fluke. Strength would determine the outcome of the battle. Red and white created a magnificent scene in the air. Each red lotus hit the killing god's attack one step ahead of the lava pillars. The red lotus and the killing god's white light collided, and the energy that Ji Dong had once thought to be invincible disintegrated in an instant. It was shredded to pieces by the dazzling white light, while the white light itself only became slightly weaker. The killing god's imposing manner and terrifying power could be seen from this. But it was also at this moment that the lava pillars surged up and fiercely collided with the white light after the red lotus, forming an interception effect. Red and white halos blossomed in the air, looking so magnificent that there wasn't even a single rumble. Ji-dong was blocked by the flaming bar's red lotus, so he couldn't feel any energy fluctuations from the outside world, but he could completely imagine how terrifying the collision between the flaming bar and the killing god Shupness would be. Perhaps, at this time, the energy fluctuations in the Earth's core lake were already not inferior to an ultimate killing skill. But strangely enough, even such a violent collision of magic power did not cause the Earth's core world to collapse or be injured. It seemed that both raging flames and Shupness had completely limited their power to a certain range. Ji-dong had lived 2 lives after all, so he immediately understood why this was happening. It definitely wasn't because of the lack of energy between the flaming bar and the killing god, but because of their location. This was the Earth's core, the core of the entire planet. If this place collapsed, the Earth's core lava lake, which was the core of the entire planet, would cause a huge change in energy. In that case, the Earth's core might be in danger of being destroyed. At the very least, it would plunge the living beings on the surface into misery and suffering. That wasn't what the killing god Shupness wanted to see. On the other hand, the flaming bar had subconsciously controlled the range of the explosion in order to protect his home. The collision of mana between the two of them had already been restricted to a small area and was extremely condensed. Moreover, they were still using a portion of their power to forcefully control the spread of mana after the collision. In that instant, Ji-dong had already grasped some things. He could tell from the expression on the flaming bar's face that this killing god was very powerful, but the Earth's core was an extremely special place. The flaming bar definitely wouldn't stand no chance in a battle here. At this moment, the first collision between the flaming bar and Shupness ended. Even though the flaming bar had used thousands of red lotus flowers and the Earth's core lava fire pillar to block the attack, she still couldn't completely block Shupness' attack. In the end, there were still over 100 white lights that reached her. The flaming bar spun beautifully in the air. Her red dress fluttered in the wind, and a mysterious red lotus halo was emitted from her body. It was as if a lotus had suddenly bloomed, and only then did the last bit of mana in Shupness' attack dissipate. The flaming bar's body trembled slightly. Ji-dong could clearly sense that her divine sense was violently fluctuating. Even though she wasn't truly injured, she had still suffered a considerable degree of shock. What a strong killing god! Even in the face of the ultimate killing technique, he did not have the slightest change in expression. Moreover, it took him 3 times to stop the raging flames of the myriad thunder purgatory realm. Could be seen how strong killing god was. Shupness looked at the flaming bar with some surprise and said, "You actually have 2 main bodies. No wonder you dared to defy me. Do you think that you can contend with me with 2 main bodies? I can also annihilate you in body and soul." As he spoke, the killing god slowly raised his right hand, and an intense white light spouted from his hand. In the blink of an eye, a meter-long sword appeared in his grasp. The 2 main bodies that Shupness had mentioned were true. The flaming bar had been in the Earth's core lake since the day she was born. She was the red lotus of Earthfire, but her power came from the Earth's core lake, and she had long since fused with the power of the Earth's core lake. Therefore, in addition to her life as a red lotus, the Earth's core lake could be said to be another body of hers. It was also because of this that she could barely contend with the killing god in front of her. If they were on the ground, perhaps the flaming bar would have been injured by a single attack from Shupness. The sword was actually filled with the pure aura of the soul. No, it should be said that it was the aura of the soul. The sharp killing intent immediately caused the Earth's core lake to change, and the magma lake below split apart because of the appearance of the killing god's sword. Through the flaming bar's divine sense, Ji-dong discovered that the killing god Shupness had used his divine sense and his own killing intent to refine this sword. What was a divine weapon? This was a divine weapon in the truest sense of the word. As soon as the killing god's sword appeared, Ji Dong could clearly feel that the flaming bar's divine sense had become extremely sluggish. It was like the extreme elemental pressure that ordinary demon masters had to endure when facing him. This overbearing pressure greatly restricted the flaming bar's abilities. Shupnus snorted coldly and waved his right hand through the air. The killing god's sword flickered with white light, and a seemingly simple white blade of light tore through the air. The instant he waved the killing god's sword, the flaming bar's divine sense was completely locked on. It seemed like an attack, but in reality, it was impossible for the flaming bar to dodge. It was just like how he had to block the hundreds and thousands of white rays of light from before. The higher the level of the battle, the simpler it would be. In the face of absolute power, any technique would be greatly discounted. The killing god Shupnus' method of dealing with the flaming bar was extremely simple, but also extremely effective. He used his own abilities to forcefully resist the difference in cultivation between the flaming bar and him. They were both level 2 gods, but whether it was the power of their divine sense or divine power, the flaming bar was far inferior to the killing god. The flaming bar's expression was solemn. Facing Shupnus' attack, she gathered her hands in front of her chest, and her 10 fingers kept turning and transforming. Like a blooming lotus, the crystalline red light transformed into a giant red lotus shield that floated in front of her. Boom. The barrier of light shattered, and the flaming bar's body was sent flying. Although the white blade of light was blocked, the terrifying killing intent that was contained within the light instantly surged into the flaming bar's body, producing a huge destructive force. The flaming bar's divine sense trembled violently, as if it could collapse at any time. The killing god's sword didn't attack the god's body, but the divine sense. Shupnus had killed countless gods, and this killing god sword of his had long since possessed the power to destroy gods. After millions of years of condensing, this killing god sword was one with him, just like how the flaming bar's body was the life origin red lotus. This killing god sword was simply too powerful. Just as the flaming bar saw Shupnus raise the killing god's sword once again and felt despair in her heart, Ji Dong transmitted a message to her through his soul force. Just like how Ji Dong had absolute trust in her, the flaming bar had the same trust in Ji Dong. In this moment of life and death, how could her lover harm her? Her divine sense erupted, and she didn't hesitate to expend a large amount of it to force out the dense killing intent that the killing god's sword had invaded her body. Facing Shupnus' second slash, the flaming bar had no intention of blocking. The life origin red lotus beneath her feet flew out brazenly. Her target wasn't the blade of light attacking her, nor was it Shupnus himself. Instead, she flew straight into the sky, colliding with the hole 1,000 meters above the Earth's core lake. How terrifying was the attack speed of a level 2 god at full power! It was definitely not something that humans could imagine. Seeing the flaming bar's life origin red lotus fly up, Shupnus couldn't help but be shocked. In his original opinion, although the flaming bar could borrow the power of the magma here, she definitely wouldn't be able to block his killing god sword. At most, he would only need 9 slashes to destroy the queen of the Earth's core lake, who shouldn't have been born in the first place. However, the flaming bar's sudden attack greatly exceeded Shupnus's expectations. As her expression changed slightly, the attack that was originally aimed at the flaming bar suddenly changed direction. At the same time, the killing god's sword in Shupnus's hand appeared, and a white screen of light pierced through the air, blocking the top of the cave. This way, his divine sense locking onto the flaming bar naturally ended, and the pressure on the flaming bar was greatly reduced. The effects of the killing god's sword also quickly disappeared. With a flash, the flaming bar jumped down into the magma lake. Her red lotus suddenly became illusory in the sky, and in the next moment it disappeared quietly. Everything that the killing god Shupnus had done was useless. What a cunning abyssal demon! Evil creature, Did you think that I wouldn't be able to do anything to you just because you escaped into the core lake? Sharpness was shocked and furious. He had carried out over 1,000 missions, but this was the first time that he had been put in a difficult position. Previously, he had no choice but to stop the flaming bar's life origin Red Lotus. This was the core lake, the core of the entire planet. Even overgods could not rely on their own power to resist the power of a planet, not even god-kings. The existence of the god realm was to protect the safety of all the planets under the god realm. God-kings could not destroy a planet from the outside world, but this was the core of the planet. The source of the magma lake came from the planet's core, so if something happened here, the entire planet could collapse from the inside. When that happened, even if the planet itself was not destroyed, as long as there were large-scale earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, it would cause great suffering. That was not something that the killing god Sharpness could bear.